All rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Alvarez, absent. Councilman Cullen.
Here.
Councilwoman Eckhart.
Here.
Councilwoman Hudak.
Here.
Supervisor Head.
Here. Notation to exits in the front and the rear. Electronic device, please put it on vibrate. Tonight we have 3 public hearings. The first one is on farmers market. I make a motion to open the public hearing on farmers market. And waive-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Also waiving the rules to read the notice. Anyone who wishes to speak to the farmers market? Just come up to the podium. State your name for the record.
My name's Tony Romagino, Romagino. I just wanted to thank everyone for putting this up as a new ruling for you guys for the town of Southeast. I represent RNG Produce that will be selling produce to all your community at the new farmers market. I was just here if you had any questions and would like to ask, and that's it. I'm also the Village of Monroe Farmers Market Manager. I've been for 5 years. Any questions?
Where is the new farmers market?
Mr. Yours?
Well, there's no locations that have applied for it as yet until,
Yeah.
of course, it becomes law, and thereafter.
The only one I know of is that Hudson Valley Cerebral Palsy. Is that the one you're talking about?
No.
Okay.
Now, it's one of the ones that actually applied for a permit.
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And once they asked about it, we had no regulations with the UCP, and we decided to put it into text and ready to go.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public to the matter? Or a question on that?
If I could, I did speak to someone at Hudson Valley Cerebral Palsy this afternoon. They were not aware that this legislation was being discussed. They are the only active
That's what I'm saying.
farmers market that I know of in the town.
Okay.
What they indicated to me is that we could hold the public hearing open, give them a chance to review the proposal and submit comments. They currently operate a farmers market that is, I think, aimed at providing services for their consumers, meaning a lot of the consumers will actually work the farmers market. And I don't know that they raise any significant revenue. So when you start imposing permit fees on a not-for-profit like that.
I don't believe, I believe the legislation does not charge for
Okay, well, I
not-for-profits.
wasn't aware of that.
Okay.
I was not involved in the drafting of it, but that was what the request was to me, because I thought that they should probably be aware of this regulatory scheme that's going into effect. I wasn't aware that there was already apparently another farmer's market planning on coming to town.
Well, one person came with a particular location and asked us what the rules and regulations of that were. And of course, we had none at that point in time. And then when I looked into it, I found out, well, I knew, of course, that the UCP had one and we had no regulations. So this would be for anyone new coming into the area and the existing one.
But you're saying there would not be any permit fee for a not-for-profit?
I believe that when you wrote the legislation, did we not write that in there or not?
So the way that I came about preparing this local law was there was at least one, if not 2 applicants that had approached the building department asking about putting in farmers markets in shopping centers.
Not
and
counting UCP?
Not including UCP.
Okay.
And at that time, after reviewing the zoning code, it appeared that farmers markets were not allowed within the town of Southeast. So that was why we drafted this local law as and setting it up as a permit so that someone could come in and potentially put a farmer's market in a shopping center if they meet the permit requirements. Through the process, we did realize that UCP was operating a farmer's market. At one of the recent planning board meetings, one of the members raised the concern that the way the farmer's market local law was drafted is it was trying to curb it from turning into a flea market and really keep it based in local agriculture. So there was a prohibition on resellers. And in light of this comment at the planning board meeting, I added to the definition of a farmer's market. A farmer's market with 2 or more booths may permit the operation of a booth by a brick and mortar food wholesaler or retailer with a location in the town of Southeast. And that was based on the understanding that there is a wholesaler that operates a booth at the UCP farmer's market. There may be other conflicts in this with UCP that I'm not aware of, so I do think that leaving it open for them to comment on this is a good idea.
Yeah, I'm grateful you said that. I did share with them your comment, and as I was not at that particular planning board meeting, I didn't know what particular vendor was of concern, and when I read that to the assistant to the executive director, she asked me if I knew which vendor that was, and I said I really don't. So,
The planning board member said it was Asendico.
It was what?
Asendico.
it could very well be that I know Asendico has a long relationship with Hudson Valley Cerebral Palsy. I don't know that they're particularly a vendor there, but I know that there are other vendors there that provide prepared or sell prepared foodstuffs that are not necessarily from the Hudson Valley, if you will. There's
Right, so
someone
this,
that
this
sells-
would allow prepared foods, and it does allow from regional locations, but, I mean, certainly having another,
Yeah,
having the
my
operating.
memory
farmers
is that they have someone that comes up from the Bronx who sells pasta and certain sausages and things like that. But I don't know whether that's something that is accepted or prohibited.
That would be accepted under this.
Okay.
But
as
it said,
drafted.
but Bronx County was not on your list
Well, it's in the
of-
state of New York, so
No, I
it
thought
was
there were
anything in
certain
the state of New York.
counties listed that I remember, and it wasn't the Bronx. It was like,
mean,
or certain states maybe, I guess,
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
I don't know.
It makes sense to just leave this open so that,
I just don't even know why this is an issue, personally. I mean, this is, Hudson Valley Cerebral Palsy has this for probably 2 years now, the farmer's market.
And just
But there's
for
others
the
that want to
record, the
participate.
village of Brewster
But who's
County-
going to enforce it on Sundays? We don't have code enforcement officers.
Yes, we do.
On Sundays in the
Yeah.
daytime? No, we don't.
Not during, well, yes, we have a person that goes
Not
out.
during the hours of the farmer's market.
We
don't.
we might have.
Well,
The
then we're gonna
purpose
have
of
to
this
hire
was not
somebody do
to in any way impact UCP's current operation of their farmers market. The purpose was to allow additional farmers markets to locate in shopping centers, should they apply to the town for that reason.
and to regulate them so that
Yeah.
their existence would be limited in time, which I think is a worthy endeavor for the town to get involved in, and also to make sure that there's trash and removal and all the other things that are certainly within our police power.
Exactly, and it was designed as a permit that would be issued by the building inspector as opposed to a planning board permit, so that it would be something that could be approved quickly.
And we'll address safety and whatever issues.
Does the health department have to weigh in on farmers markets?
If they serve food, yes.
Yeah.
If they serve prepared
Prepared
food
foods.
that is cooked on site, they have to have a health department permit.
So if it's prepared off-site, not cooked on-site, they don't have to.
If it's-
There's other health department regulations
Yeah.
that apply to prepared foods off-site.
And to address the exemption, the intent was that they would be exempt, but we would do that in the fee schedule when we prepare the fee schedule. It's actually not written in the law, but we
Right,
did
it does
discuss
allow for the ability of the town to charge a fee, but there could be an exemption to not-for-profit organizations on the fee.
And we will do that under the fee schedule.
Yeah, just for the record, the Village of Brewster did have, for a number of years, a farmer's market, and because of the proliferation of this one, I believe, in the moving of the location of the village one, they then merged. So, and I believe the village, or the people that were involved with the farmer's market in the Village of Brewster are supportive of the merger of the two. My point being that I think as you have a proliferation of farmers markets, you're going to find that it's going to be difficult for anyone to make money.
Right, that's probably the problem.
Although I think the one in Brewster was, for example, I think the UCP one is great. I've only been there once, but it's 9 miles from where I live, I think, something like that. It's far, so I think the village would have a different jurisdiction anyhow, but I certainly don't think I mean, I would think this is something we'd want to encourage.
Well,
You
this
want
is,
to encourage?
Yeah, I think it's, it really, I think people like it more and more, and as I said, the one I saw up in Great Barrington was really amazing. It was a real gathering place for people, which is a nice thing to have too.
But I think our regulations are gonna discourage it because,
Well, that's what we talked about, and that's why I think it's premature to close the public hearing.
I agree.
would like to hear from UCP.
I
And I
agree.
would like to hear from other people if they have more to say, and I would like to craft a regulation that doesn't necessarily hurt our existing farmer's market, but leaves it open for others.
I just don't
And
know
not doesn't get
who's gonna
junky.
enforce it on Sundays because we don't have any.
Well, we don't know that it has to be on a Sunday.
Well, UCP's is on Sundays, but
Right.
I don't know what, most of them are on weekends. We
I think
don't
the way
really
the statute
have
is
town
currently
employees working
drafted,
on
it's
weekends.
no more than 2 days a week.
Right,
Yes.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we should leave
Yeah,
this
I'm
public
fine.
hearing open.
Yeah.
It sounds as if there's a lot more questions than there are answers, so why don't we just do that?
That's fine.
See if anyone else has comments, but yeah, I
Well, now,
would,
but,
yeah.
but I think there's a,
so we continued our next meeting on whatever date we choose to have it, November 2nd or November 9th. So we'll continue the public hearing at that point in time.
Yeah.
And there's also, we've had the food trucks, which have been out there like maybe 2 or 3 years, even before that, and we only have 3 registered in the entire town thus far. So I think you're not gonna see
Right.
Right.
the same happening, or less. We know there's one in existence. I only knew of one other that had applied to the building department, but there was 2 others. So that's 3, which would be 3. And of course, the sites where they go have to be approved for, and each site would be treated equally, whether it's in existence now or not. And they may have, whatever the rules are, everyone has to apply for them and be treated the same.
Yep.
But as far as the fee schedule, we'll address that in the fee schedule.
I mean, is
We're not
it,
gonna charge an arm and leg for this, because, I mean, in the fairness of it is, you don't make a lot of money. And the season is really quite short in the sense of the word as well. So what we want is, fresh produce to the residents and not make it, overburdened by government, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so we're gonna continue it at the next meeting. And we'll make sure we get it out to UCP. I'm surprised that we're not made aware of it. I mean, we did advertise it like normal, I don't know how. Okay, anyway, make sure I send out the invitation to them to make comment, read the law accordingly, and look for more comment at the next meeting. Okay.
Motion to keep it open.
Make a motion to keep it open and bring it back for the next meeting, whenever it's
Second.
determined.
I'll
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item up is Barrett Hill. Okay, we'll have them give a quick presentation and we'll take any comments thereafter.
we have to open it.
Oh, okay, sorry. Make a motion to open and waive the reading of the public hearing for Barrett Hill.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Good evening, my name is Terry Ann Hahn, Principal of LAD APC Land Planners. We are the site planners for the property. Back in 2016, the town board of the town of Southeast approved a floating zone known as the multifamily workforce housing zone and mapped that site to the site which is known as Mount Evo Lot 6 or Barrett Hill. Barrett Hill originally was approved and construction began back in 2010 or so as a 168-unit senior housing project. And under the new multifamily workforce housing zone, it is been redesigned to allow for workforce housing, under the same number of units. So it's 168 units. The original approval were 2 and 3 bedroom units. These are smaller units. They're 1 and 2 bedroom units. And they've been reconfigured into a series of 8 buildings. Just for site plan purposes, for this orientation, north is this way. This is Mount Evo Road North. This is Route 22 down here. This is the temple up at Mount Evo and the nursing home up at Mount Evo. The site, basically, the construction that will occur is based within the same area as the original approved plans. It includes the same number of units, although again, like I said, the units are smaller. It includes similar number of parking spaces, the same number of area disturbance, impervious coverage, and uses the existing stormwater basins. The project is under the workforce housing, is subject to a special permit, which is what the application that we're doing today is. We have been to the planning board and also to the architecture review board, and seeker has been completed to date. So this public hearing is specifically about the for the special permit. Just the buildings themselves are 2 stories in the front where you would drive in, and then 3 stories in the back, which is consistent with the original approval. We actually have quite a bit more detail on this. There's more ins and outs of the buildings. The previous approved buildings were substantially larger than these currently built buildings are.
Could you go back to the other drawing that you had initially, and identify to the public where the front and back is on the other one,
Sure.
if you don't mind?
Sure, no problem. If I do this, that's easy.
Yeah, just,
So this is what we call the front of the unit.
right?
Technically, those are here. That's what you would see in the parking lot.
Okay, so from the Jewish temple, they would see the backside.
They would see the other side, correct?
And the people up in the nursing home there?
They'll see the 2-story side from that side.
So that's the front side for them?
This is all the front. The part of the side adjacent to the parking lot is the 2-story side. And then there's a walkout in the back.
So
2
the,
stories, 3 stories.
so the ones on the bottom,
Yep,
the back faces is the back.
yep.
So the front faces the back of the other ones?
The front faces the parking lot.
Okay, and then the other?
Then there's a slope.
Okay, oh, would it be visible from one to the other? In other words, from the first row,
Yes,
if they look across, will they be able to see those other units
the units are higher.
higher?
Yes.
So they would see the back side of those
They
units?
see the backside, yes, correct. But it's fairly substantively away, and it's set up quite a bit higher. So you're not looking, none of the units here look into the bottom of this.
Okay, okay.
That's what you meant, like where.
Yeah, I just wanted to find out which is way, okay,
No, that's not the way it goes.
okay.
The project also includes a variety of recreation facilities, clubhouse, including billiards room, yoga, pool, play structure. There's a walking trail as well as a fitness trail located throughout the project itself. I'd be happy to answer any other questions with respect to the site plan, but at this point, I'm going to turn it over to John to talk about the elements that were required as part of the special permit, the community benefits agreement, and the marketing plan.
Good evening. My name is John Bain-Lardy. I'm the Director of Development for Wilder Balter Partners, one of the co-sponsors of the project, along with Covington Development. The multifamily housing zone, as you may recall, required as a component the set-aside of 30% of the units, in this case 50 units out of 168, to be specially marketed and occupied to certain priority categories of residents. Those priority categories include first-time employees of the town of Southeast, full-time employees of school districts serving the town of Southeast, persons aged 55 years and older, persons with disabilities, Putnam County first responders, qualified active volunteer members of the town's fire department, and veterans living in Putnam County.
Can I ask you a quick question on that? That's the first time I heard first-time employees of the town of Southeast. I heard,
Full-time.
oh, I thought you said first time.
Sorry, I did say, yeah, full-time.
I just want to let you know I'm listening.
Thank you. And as required under the workforce housing zone, the multifamily workforce housing zone, this requirement is to be encapsulated and set forth in a community benefits agreement, which is entered into between the property owner and the town. As part of the environmental review, when the zoning was changed, a draft of that agreement was incorporated and reviewed during that process. During our application to the site plan, application for site plan to the planning board, there were some additional comments that came from the planning board which were incorporated into the community benefits agreement that was submitted to your board, really clarifying comments. One being a clarification to make it clear that of the 50 units, 17 units are to be set aside as affordable at incomes not to exceed 80% of the median household income for Putnam County. The rents would be limited to 30% of that 80% income threshold, and there'll be a 99-year restrictive covenant ensuring that those 17 units will be, for that duration, will be set aside and rented as affordable units. The community benefits agreement requires that this, the marketing and the administration of the priority units be coordinated and with an independent third party. We have proposed Housing Action Council. Rose Noonan, who heads the Housing Action Council, is here this evening. As we discussed at the last meeting, Rose will talk about her organization and their unique qualifications and for administering such a program. The community benefits agreement also contemplated that there would be a marketing plan or a marketing outline, which we've drafted. Rose will touch in detail about the marketing plan and how that's laid out and how we envision that this would be administered as the project moves forward. So if you don't have any questions for me on this particular topic, I'd like to introduce Rose Noonan.
I would like to just ask one question. When you use the word affordable, I know there's a formula, it's 80%, 30%, whatever. What would be the lowest range? Do you have a lowest range, what the highest range of the affordable would be?
Based upon the current median household income?
Yes. You have any idea? You can always send it to us. If not, if you don't know it offhand, I don't want to hold you to it.
I may have it in my records here.
Okay.
I'll
So like,
look at it
what's the
while-
low end and what would be the high end, just for affordable as opposed to the regular rents? I think one was, one bedroom's gonna be around 1,700 and a 2,200 for the two bedroom? On regular ones, on the regular rents?
For market rate?
Yes.
Market rate, that's within the range. We're still studying to determine what ultimately the market will fall out at for market rate. But the rents for the affordable will be restricted to 30% of whatever 80% of the median household income for a particular family. So a family of four in Putnam County and is probably in the $100,000 range for a median household income for a family of four. 80% of that would be $80,000, and then 30% of that $80,000 would be the annual rents divided by 12. I'll do the math for you, and I'll double check the numbers while Rose is addressing.
Could I ask a quick question too?
Ceiling for income. In other words, for affordability, you can't exceed 80% of the median household income for your household size.
I know,
to
it's
qualify.
tough to give an exact, but just a range of what it
Yes.
might be. Not gonna hold you to it, just close.
Could I ask another quick question? In the package, it was dated July 31st, but I think it's most current, on page 3. They're under F at the top of the page. F and G are actually exactly the same. And I didn't know, I'm sure that wasn't supposed to be there, maybe it was, but I didn't know whether something was missing, that there is a G that's different than the F.
Are we in the community benefits agreement?
No, we're in the marketing, let's see, I can give you this if you want to look, but it's,
What's the date on it?
the date is July 31st, 2017. It was to the planning board, to Tom LaPerche. Do you have it, Terry? F and G are the same. On page, it's page 3. They're not numbered, but. Okay, but we're not, are we missing anything is my question.
I don't think so. I think we hit all the volunteers, the full-time employees, the first responders, the veterans, the persons over 55, and the physical development until the disabilities. It looks like it's a repeat.
Okay, so that needs to be, so I have the most recent package, right? It was July 31st?
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
July 31st. You said July 21st?
It's 31st. But it's same thing, okay. Yeah, I don't have that one handy, sorry, I only have this one, so. Okay, thank you. And I'll have more questions, but let's do the presentation, I think it's more important. Thanks, though.
Good evening. I'm Rose Noonan. I'm the Executive Director of the Housing Action Council. The Housing Action Council is a nonprofit organization. We are based in Westchester. However, we do extensive work throughout the Hudson region, including in Putnam County. One of our activities is marketing, marketing workforce housing, marketing of affordable housing. And what you have in there, where I mistakenly said the same thing twice, as you've pointed out, is that we have often been involved in working with municipalities and also in working with developers like Wilder Balter, who we do have a long, very productive history with, of responding and marketing both ownership units and rental units to those in areas that are designating certain people who are a priority. For example, we are referred to as the marketing consultant for the town of Portland, and in some of the developments that they're involved with, there are certain preference categories that we're responsible for the aggressive marketing initially in order to let individuals and families in those particular categories, make them aware of the opportunities that are available, encourage them to apply and to take advantage of the opportunities. We also, with respect to the 17 affordable units within the 50 priority units, one of our tasks, if you approve Housing Action Council as this entity, would also be responsible for doing the income qualification, where, as John said, household incomes would not exceed 80% of the median income. We have a multifaceted approach to this marketing, which, through our experience, and we have been involved in the marketing of developments similar to this for over 15 years, but and have been able to demonstrate results. Every community and every development is different. Sometimes there are preferences, sometimes there aren't. But when there's the preferences like that are outlined in the community benefits agreement, we will do aggressive marketing to those categories which were laid out. The approach involves publication of the availability of the housing within publications that are read in this particular area. Our experience is that doesn't draw the most of the applications that come in, but it's the work with the organizations that either employ or represent the particular preference groups that you're interested in targeting. So in this case, Again, if we were approved, we would be working with the school districts, as we do in other community groups, to get the words out, to conduct information sessions within the schools at times where their employees can come, ask questions, hear about the opportunity. We would work with the various first responders to let them know of the opportunities, and also the various other organizations that represent the various groups. We have done effectively quite a few public service announcements. We would target that in this area. We would conduct workshops to let people know of the opportunities. And we would be evaluating as the applications come in, the draft marketing outline, let me call it an outline, that you have in front of you, which is the latest, is dated July 20th, indicates that we would market over a 3-month period. But during those 3 months, we would be evaluating, are we reaching the preference groups that you've targeted? If not, we need to do more of what we're already doing, or look at it in a different way so that we're better able to reach the preference groups that you're interested in. The end of that 3-month process would involve a lottery. We have done numerous. I mean, just tell you, within the past 5 months, I've done six different public lotteries. But they would be separated into different lotteries depending on those that are applying to the affordable units, to those who fit within your preference categories, to all others. And they would be selected from 1 to however many applications have been received, and then qualified in a number of ways to make sure that they do meet the preference criteria, that they are within the income levels, and then they would be, the applications would be handed over to the management company in order to do the regular work that they do in terms of checking credit and assessing whether the households are in a position to cover the rents that would be charged. We do have a significant database at Housing Action Council with respect to households who have expressed interest, both in rental and ownership housing. In terms of our marketing from other areas, we do cover Putnam, and we can narrow down and indicate which of those are residents or employees within the town. We can go further and define the categories even further. So we would use our own database in addition to the publications, having community group meetings, having one-to-one contact with your preference group categories, and going and working out a plan in each of those preference categories on how to most effectively reach the people who would be interested in this particular development. And making sure we're conducting evaluations regularly during that 3-month period to make sure that adequate numbers of applications are coming in from the preference groups. Can I answer any questions for you?
After your initial participation, do you continue on in the future, and for how long if you do?
Okay. Do I? Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay.
What's contemplated, and I think what's required, is that we're going to have an ongoing obligation to continue to occupy the 50 units to members of the priority group. In order to be able to do that, we'll need to continue to market as we go along. And the community benefits agreement requires that we provide through ROSE independent verification of that to, on some basis, to your board or to the town to ensure that we're meeting our obligations under the law.
Okay, so you have the 17 are affordable, and you have 33 that are non-affordable but are part of the priority units.
Correct.
And how long does it go after the initial? Does it continue? I mean, once it's rented to a priority person, does the next rental have to be priority?
So what the community benefits agreement contemplates is that there would be a 6-month reservation period. So from initial lease up, so to speak, there'd be a minimum of 6-month period of time in which we need to market out to try to achieve a number of the minimum 50 for the priority units. If after that 6 months we're unsuccessful, we don't believe that we will be. We think we're going to have no problem filling those units. But if there was an issue with not achieving the 50, then we would continue to market. And if a unit, if the number of units of the 50 fell below, let's say there were 45 at a period of time, and 5 were rented to someone outside of that priority group, when the next unit becomes available, it'll go first to a priority category person until we get back to that 50. So they're always in a state of trying to maintain that 50 minimum of the priority. I suspect that with this particular group, particularly with the senior group as well, that we'll probably always be over the 50 at some level.
Yeah, because they're paying a normal rent, so it wouldn't matter if you went to 60 or 65.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. The public?
Can I ask a question?
No.
You want me to wait? I can? Okay, thank you. Okay, I didn't hear, and I apologize, is the Housing Action Council is a not-for-profit?
That's correct.
Okay. My concern is that this has gone from commercial to senior housing and now to the workforce housing. And I really want the people of Southeast to benefit as much as possible from this because of the zoning change. So, and then I would assume, and I could be wrong here, but that there can't be any discrimination no matter where a senior comes from, or you can't limit seniors or the disabled as to where their geographic location, wherever they're coming from. Is that correct?
I'm thinking through your question.
No, it's fine. It's no rush.
Question here. I mean, in terms of your preferences, you identify seniors and those who have disability as one of your preference categories, without targeting the town.
Correct.
Correct?
Well, that, yes,
Right.
in this, it says persons who are 55 years of age of older, and then the physical disabilities, they're not location specific. It doesn't say Southeast residents. And I understand that. My concern here is that, because I believe you can't discriminate no matter where they're from, which is fine. But the first responders, when it, not limited to whether they're Carmel or other areas, that is something, are you allowed to prioritize Southeast residents first? We're not under any mandate, as I'm sure you know better than I know, on affordable housing. So I would like to see our residents really given real priority on these units, and that's, I guess, my question, is that going to be possible?
With the way the community benefit agreements lays out now, and I believe it's based on an ordinance, the workforce ordinance, there would be no priority given to one of the particular categories. So you would need to, if there was a decision here that you desire to do that, there are certain issues that you would have to look at with respect to the fair housing law.
Okay, so at present, it can be from other towns. It's not prioritizing Southeast residents.
It's prioritizing within your whole list of
Right.
preference categories.
Right. So, and so you have marketed up in Putnam before, I
Yes.
assume with Walter.
No, actually not.
No, not with them.
Not
Okay.
with Wilder Walter,
Okay.
but with others.
Okay. And do you have a marketing budget? I was very concerned last time about the 3-month limit. I think it's going to be very successful and sell very quickly, but I was concerned about that limit if it's not successful.
One of the, I think the 3-month period is a good good amount of time. What we find with particularly rental housing, often those that are looking to rent want to do it pretty immediately. And if you extend it beyond a 3-month period, you lose people, and they often, decide they're going off in with another opportunity. That's why I'm suggesting three months.
Okay.
And be very intensive marketing during that 3-month period. Our experience is also when you have a deadline like this, as compared to first come first serve, many of your applications come in the last month. So you sort of see some applications, but more of a trickle and then that last month is whenever most people put in their application.
All right, I would really like this to benefit, I feel it's discriminatory anyhow, but that's my personal feeling. So be that as it may, I'd really like to see Southeast residents, I'd really like to see us benefit, because we're going to now have extra kids in our schools. We're going to be paying for this development, I believe. So that's something that would mean, that really means something, I think, to residents in the town of Southeast.
I think that, I have to throw that back to you as a decision that you need to make. What I've been presented is, what the town's current requirements are, and that's what the outline is built around. But in terms of what we can do, whatever you come up with as the preference categories that you're looking to benefit from, we can carry it out.
Right.
It's not a decision that we make.
Right, but it could be marketed then more specifically initially to residents in Southeast, or not?
I think you need your legal opinion on that.
Right. I think when you get down to it, I think it'd be difficult, or at least I believe it sounds like it would be difficult to, in effect, say this will only be for Southeast residents. And then what will happen is, of course, if they're in a position of not being able to have enough Southeast residents to come in, then of course we're going to run afoul of the fact that you really want to have the place rented. And then the other thing is, if it does attract people other than Southeast residents, well, guess what? There'll be Southeast residents when they move in. They'll be able to shop Southeast, they'll be able to drive Southeast, and we'll be in a unique position of having more Southeast people. I understand what you're saying, Lynn. What you basically want is you don't want to increase the burden on the school system with non-Southeast people, but, they will be Southeast people, and hopefully they'll be contributing to our local economy the way that we would anticipate anyway. To say that they might move, this is renters, et cetera, to say that they might move from one location only in Southeast to this location, I get it, it would be good, because then you're not adding more people, but I don't think, and obviously, we'll have to defer to council regarding this matter, but my sense would be it probably wouldn't be legally possible, and, at the end of the day, it's a win-win anyway.
And just, the Brewster School District was asked to weigh in on this, and they were provided with all the information, and they didn't have a problem with the possibility of additional students, as far as I remember.
Right.
And the population of Putnam County and Southeast is dropping. People are going south, so there are less people in Putnam County this year than there was 10 years ago. But Brewster Schools was...
Well, to be clear, they didn't weigh in at all on it, and of
Well,
course
they were asked to weigh in.
Right, they were asked,
and
but they did not.
Right, but they
They
should
chose
have
not
if they had a concern, but that's not,
Right, they're not paying the taxes.
well, not
That's
the
it.
administrators, because they don't live in town, but the school board should have weighed in, because they live in town.
If I may just add one point. In our experience, the best way to serve the communities and priority groups who we're trying to serve, whether they're in the town or outside of the town, or whether they're in the greater part of the region or the county, is to provide the opportunity. And this type of housing doesn't exist. So, the first step is provide the housing. Those who can benefit from the housing, believe me, they'll find it. And they're here. There's not going to be an issue with serving the community. The community will be served best by providing the opportunity. That's what we're trying to achieve.
John, I would like to correct you in that our comprehensive plan says we do have enough housing like this, but this will be new. of course, we welcome new residents into town, this is gonna get built, so I wanna be clear about that. I would just like our residents to benefit, if they can, that's all.
And that, you know, it'll be a goal, it's part of the overall marketing plan. We're going to reach them. We won't reach them exclusively, but we're going to reach them.
Okay, anyone else here on the board?
The
Okay,
public?
Public, yep, public, yes, ma'am?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. 8 days from this evening, Green Chimneys will celebrate its 70th year in Putnam County and where we are. And I can tell you that the thought that we have housing for teachers and professionals 2 miles from our campus would be delightful. Right now, you probably know I'm clipping newspapers every morning, and there's an 8,600 teachers shy in most of the schools in New York State, and you can't find them. And just think, if you're able to get this on for us, the people that go, even though they're retired, will be welcome at our facility, and they will be able to add their salary to their pension. And I have to tell you that our teachers who are working with children, all who have been excluded from public schools, are getting half of what they would get if they were in the public school. So this would be joy. I'm 88 years of age, and this thing is, I see it as a dream in the years coming. I might not be here, but I will send blessings from heaven to all of you if you push this idea, because for us, it would be a means of operating and serving a lot more children. I don't know if you realize that the after-school program in the town, in the village, in the town of Southeast is operated by Green Chimneys. We are very interested in community work with youth, and getting employees is not easy. I don't know if you know that we have community-based services in the town, and we work very hard to provide the kind of services that are needed for adults or adolescents that are in trouble. And it's amazing for me that our budget at the present time is $42,000 to $42 million a year, and about 85 of that is supplied by government, but the rest we have to go and ask people and jingle little bells and things and ask them to help support what we're doing. And if I didn't have to go home and go to bed, I would come up there and try to get something from each one of you this evening. But I can tell you this: education is the most important thing that we can do for our youth. Preparation for a job is very, very, very important. We know that at Green Chimneys, our children will not get an academic diploma. They will get a CDOS, Career Development Occupational Services, and they will work in this town, and they will take a job in this town, and they will do the kind of things. And we hope that we work hard enough that we change their behavior and the behavior of their families. And I want, if you have any questions about this situation, I'd love you to come up and take a tour of our facility and see how close we are to the Mount Evo situation, and know that we will be, right now we have 75 buses that come in each morning, 7 days a week, 12 months a year, dropping off children from as far away as Albany and as far away as Montauk in the Long Island. And having teachers that know that they can be that close to their job would make a big difference. Thank you very much.
Sir, if you can identify
Oh,
yourself.
excuse me. Do you have any questions?
Know your name, please. Your name for the record.
What?
Your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Samuel B. Ross Jr., the
Very
founder
good,
of
thank you.
Green Chimneys, better known as Rolo, the kid in the Katzenjammer Kids who couldn't behave. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker? Go ahead. Oh, don't fight now.
Kathy Croft. I have a couple of questions. One is, what other towns have you done this particular type of development in already? The workforce, everything that you're doing, planning for Barrett Hill, where else has this been done?
You mean HAC or any
workforce? Wilder Walter or whatever, I just mean where, this isn't the first place it's been
No,
done.
so I mean, globally, multifamily housing throughout the Hudson Valley. We've done probably in excess of 20 communities. Most recently, we're doing a rehab or a redevelopment of the Reader's Digest, the famous cupola building down in Chappaqua. That's being converted to 64 units, market rate, workforce, and affordable. We've done straight affordable developments as close as North Salem and called Bridleside, age restricted in Carmel, both Houston Commons and Hillcrest. We've done another 90 units in Montrose.
Did they all have priority?
And some of those are straight affordable. And in Chappaqua, the most recent has some workforce housing, which has some priority.
Great, thank you. And then the other question, because this is just logical for me, there's 8 buildings, which I assume are not going to all be built at the same time. What's the build-out period?
To build out a development like this, you're looking from probably the day you put a shovel in the ground to the time you're at full completion, and then wrapping up occupancy is 18 months to 2 years. That would be pretty typical for developments of this size.
So then, my next question would be the 3 months. You're gonna have it completed and then have the tenants move in, or you're gonna do it in stages?
In stages. So what would happen is, as we have buildings that are coming online that are at a point where they meet all of the standards and requirements of the town code enforcement official, we'd have an expectation that, say, a building is going to be opening up in 4 months. We would start the marketing period for that particular building and then roll into the next building.
And this is where my question is going. So the 3 months is for each time a building opens.
Correct.
It's a 3-month marketing time frame for that particular building.
Correct. And it's really 6 months. It's a 6-month reservation period, but 3 months would be the initial marketing from
Right.
when we would then hold the lottery, and then there would be ongoing marketing as needed basis if we need to get more people to come in to qualify.
And I assume that would be in anticipation of, you wouldn't wait until it's ready to be opened and it's got its, it's been given its occupancy, whatever, but.
Talk more into the mic,
Yeah,
please.
I was gonna
That you would market it 6 months before it's done? Before it's finished?
I mean, marketing begins at a time that is logical. So you can start some outreach and start to let the community know that this is coming. The more targeted marketing happens closer to the time, as Rose mentioned earlier, when you can actually have apartments that people can move in, and they see that coming in the near term.
Okay. And one more question about this, and it's one building at a time, or will it be a couple of buildings at a time?
We'll have multiple buildings being constructed at the same time. You have to start with one, but you're moving right into the next. And as any contractor or developer will tell you, the quicker the better.
Yes.
And then another question, which was not touched upon this evening, were the recreation fees. Has a fee structure been set for that, for the units?
There are two sets of numbers, and I guess we're going to determine that in the future before it's approved.
Okay, thank you.
Next person?
Melinda Montanaro, 131 Ice Pond Road. First of all, I just want to say my daughter went to Green Chimneys for preschool, and the staff was lovely, and we had a great experience, so thank you. My question, although Kathy just asked it, was about the recreation fees.
Yeah, there's a set, there was one set that the planning board had approved, which the amount was recommended, well, AKRF, who are our planners, Ashley Lai, who's over there, had back in August 22nd, 2017, had given a structure for it to the planning board, and it was approved by the planning board, which would be, the fees would be $263,796.76. Divided by 168 units, it would be $1,570.22. Subsequently, and yesterday we just received this, October 18th, Ms. Lai had readjusted it to a figure, after hearing from town board members, to a figure of $482,393.65, which would be $2,871.39 a unit. The difference being twofold, I believe, as she explained to me today. And one is where the initial analysis had included the use of public county-owned parklands, which were then thereafter excluded. I had just questioned the fact that it was included as parks and recreation, and I'm sure that
The
anyone
county-
can go online and get these memos. So it was included as part of the parks and recreation areas that could be used by whomever is going to occupy these units, bearing in mind that they have a clubhouse and a pool and trails, et cetera. So initially, the county land is included, and then it's excluded. So I did ask Ashley today what sense that kind of made, because I couldn't quite understand from August to October how it had changed when the August memo was run over by the planning board and certainly approved. And she told me that the reason why, or as it states here, is the analysis was revised to exclude this acreage because it is neither funded nor controlled by the town of Southeast, and therefore does not contribute to the town's ability to provide recreational facilities and programming to its own residents. So the question was, though, is that it means it's not funded by the town, so there is no additional monies for it. And indeed, town residents can still use these facilities. And in fact, the town facilities don't exclude anyone outside of our town. So to me, it was a plus when in fact it was turned out to be a minus. And as Ashley explained, this is just giving us an opportunity to have another way of looking at what the recreation fees would be, because there's really no set, recreation fee for this type of building setup. So we have these two, and obviously we'll be discussing it. I'm hoping that the planning board chairman will also be weighing in on it, simply because he had already approved it, and
The initial number, but with
lower
the
one,
county,
August
with the
22nd
county
number.
land.
Correct, correct. And it's just a matter of excluding. There was one other piece, which was that, and of course Ashley could speak to it, but acreage was updated to exclude non-programmed areas from the calculation, and there was an attachment for that. So essentially, if you include the county facilities, as was done in the first instance, we actually there's actually an overage of applicable acreage, and if you take the county parks out of it, there is actually an underage, which then results in the additional recreation fees for each of the units. So that's basically what will be debated.
And when will you reach a decision?
Well, we're gonna have to discuss it at another meeting of the town board.
Yep.
And will the public hearing stay open, or?
Well, it's a town board decision, it's not
Right.
it's not a public decision. but,
Okay.
I mean, certainly you're asking the question, so you're aware of it, and if you're aware of it, of course, you know, you're in a position of opining on it now as any other member of this audience would be. So the bottom line is, unfortunately, this is a late, you know, October 18th, I'm not certain, you know, if Ms. Hahn had an opportunity to look at it, or any of the other individuals involved in this, but it came as a surprise to me, and once again, it's an option that we can look at, of course. It's something that is in the town's best interest. What we want to do is to make certain that our facilities are used in a judicious fashion. However, I don't think that I'm going to be in a position to say that we can exclude townspeople from using county facilities, be they me, or be they one of the teachers and or the first responders who'll be moving into this area, who do have pools and recreation facilities and a clubhouse and everything else. So that's something that certainly we all can speak about, and I know that we'll have, I'm sure, a robust discussion in the town board. But that being said, you know, that's what it is, and certainly you're on top of it because you're asking the question.
Okay.
I mean, my concern is how the planner.
Yeah, can we hear how the?
Right, how we got a 180 switch.
Yeah.
I mean, she says one thing in August, and now after speaking to 2 town board members,
Well, I guess how
things
did we?
changed, and that really concerns me.
I don't believe there was 2 town board members. It was myself. I brought it up at the last meeting, as you all know. I told you I was going to research it. I did talk to the Recreation Department. We found some, unfortunately, discrepancies in the numbers, not only the fact that the Putnam County's properties and whatever, based on the report, the way it was done, if we had Fawnstock State Park here in the town of Southeast, wouldn't have to pay any recreation fees, and I don't think that's fair. So I did take it upon myself. Lynn was not involved with this. I know you might want to put her involved with it, but she wasn't involved with it. And the bottom line to it, I think it's more reasonable. We found numerous discrepancies, that even though you might have a 30-acre parkland, which is parkland, but the actual envelope of the park itself might only be 2 acres.
I just
So
don't
that-
know why the whole board wasn't involved in this.
The whole board was involved. We had the meeting at the last meeting.
And the
And I went
prior-
out and I researched the numbers, and I brought it to the attention. I think there's a
we weren't
problem.
involved in that.
You
No,
could
I
be
involved
involved with it. You could be involved with it. You
But I
could call
wasn't
her,
involved.
but you could have.
No,
Nothing was
I
stopping you.
only
I
said it
accepted
because.
her memo on.
Oh, but I did not. I
on
said
what?
it that night. I wasn't accepting the number.
So then we have a problem with our consultants then.
No, we
No.
don't. I
You just
disagree
said
with her.
that.
No, I
So we had a
disagree with
problem, And
her.
now all of a sudden she.
No, that night it
agrees
was
with you.
very clear. I have the list here of all the errors that were, and I'm not
So
blaming
she
our.
made errors?
No, they were, I believe they were in our comprehensive plan. I'm not throwing Ashley under the bus. What I'm saying is, there are a great many errors in here that should and needed to be corrected. For example, there is no beach at Markel Park. There weren't tennis courts at Markel Park. There's more than a baseball field at Sculpino Park. So there were pluses and minuses all the way around. I went in and talked to Patty about it, but to say this town board wasn't aware of that, if you weren't aware of it, Bob, you were not paying attention that night.
No,
because
actually, I
we
asked
discussed
Ashley if she spoke to anyone, and she told me that subsequent, she did speak to you and Tony about it. That's why
All I spoke to Ashley about was to tell her about these errors. I did not meet with
And
Ashley
I
or have
remember
any.
the last
Okay.
meeting, we can go back to the tape, I said, I don't think Ashley should speak to any individual town board members about this. We should all be part of the discussion, because, and then I questioned who pays the fees if one of us speak to her. So I thought it should have been a bit joint discussion, and apparently 3 of us were left out of it.
Well, we can't have a-
And I got a memo yesterday, which I just saw this morning on my email, which was a 180 switch as far as what the recreation fee should be.
Well, evidently you struck a nerve.
Well, because I don't understand how
Well,
we went from one
because
thing to
Bob,
another.
you called Ashley, you called people today. You didn't call me and tell me. You can do it and we can't. Look, I brought it up at the last meeting.
I
I
didn't
did
call
not
you.
agree with
Who
the
did I call?
numbers.
I didn't call
I don't
Ashley.
agree with a lot of things being done with this one. I had problems with another development that went on here. We pointed out discrepancies in it, and the bottom line is, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. Again, this developer should pay approximately $7,500 per lot, which is the current rate. I'm hearing it's too high. If it is, let's change it. But they're paying, originally that memo said it was gonna be $1,500 when it should have been $7,500. I also pointed out another development, one of the more recent ones, Fortune Ridge was one of them, how much that they paid, they had better amenities than this one, and I think the combination of the two, and what has been recommended the second time, should have been the one on the first time,
But-
and I'm not sure why only the planning board had input when it's a decision that this town board is gonna make, and we aren't part of that.
But 7 members of the planning board agreed with her original memorandum opinion.
And you liked what you read, so you had no change to it, but I read it,
Right.
Lynn read
So
it.
you're now circumventing the entire planning board, 7 members,
No, we're
because
not,
you don't agree.
no. I think the bottom
you've
line
got
of
her
this
to
number
change
is
it.
gonna
Yeah,
be
you
with
can-
this town board, and I know where it's gonna end up with. I
Yeah.
can tell you the number right now.
You can accuse me of circumventing the planning board because I go to all their meetings. I don't agree with all their decisions. I do my homework. And yeah, I don't think that the estimate, the first estimate was correct. And if you read the resolution, the one whereas says, whereas the proposed development includes on-site recreation, the amount of parkland and recreation area provided does not fully offset the anticipated demand to be generated by the proposed project. And the buck stops with us. And if we think they
Well, then
made
we
a
don't need a
mistake.
planning board anymore. We should eliminate.
Oh, come on.
No, what I think is, what I
You don't
think.
need to have a planning board.
What I think we need Ashley to explain what the differences
Town
are
board
between the
could be
two
the planning
memos.
I would be happy to do that.
Besides the point that what we're talking about, it says Tenetta Lake Park, in one, it says Castle Park, but the acreage only changed by, the acreage Tenetta Lake Park in the October 18th was 5.94 acres. They eliminated, we have in the October 18th, we have the beach there. And the other one, we had the beach in the Markel Park, but that was eliminated. But, you know, when you get down to it, other than that, I don't think there was a big difference other than, and as I spoke to Ashley today, when she confirmed that you, Lynn, and Tony had spoken to her subsequently, which was, okay, that's fine, because I talked to her today. But how she explained the differences, and of course, Ashley's going to speak for herself, how she explained the differences was essentially the exclusion of those county parks, and that one other item, which you'll explain better than I obviously have, and that was the difference, but once again, after she explains it, I just don't understand why we're not including county parks as part of it, and we don't charge any fees to go into any of our parks except when Tenetta Lake is open, and anybody can go into the park. We could have Putnam Valley people going in our park, we could have Carmel people going into the park, it doesn't stop it.
Okay, so the two memos, I would say, provide a range of what would be a reasonable provision of a rec fee. So you have the lower end, which was included county parks in the calculation. I did get a call from Lynn after that meeting in which I adjusted some of the names that are currently on the town's website, actually didn't match what the recreation department calls the park, so those were fixed. The newer memo, what it does is it takes out county parks, and it also takes out non-programmed recreation space on the project site.
And what is that exactly?
So there were some areas of the project, the proposed project includes a clubhouse, walking trails, barbecue area, an open lawn play area, and a playground. There were a couple areas to either side of the clubhouse, and then an area on the far side of the walking trails near the parking lot that did not appear to be programmed. So those were excluded, and that was a slight reduction, I think 0.2 acre reduction in the total recreation space on
What
on
does
the project
program
site.
mean specifically?
So programmed would be something like a walking trail, a part of the property that has a specific recreation use associated with it. The areas that were excluded in this more recent analysis were more open space areas. So the other item that was included in the newer memorandum was that I did speak to Recreation Department staff to get a better understanding of what their ongoing operational costs are and what the condition of the current parks are. So that was something that was added to the table. And also, I understand, I was not at the last town board meeting, but I understand there was a question raised about whether or not people from this project would potentially use some of the town parks because they have their own on-site recreation. the feeling of the recreation staff was that they would. There are residents of a lot of the condo buildings within the town that also oftentimes use the parks, even though they have their own on-site facilities, like a pool. They still go to Netta Lake Park to use the beach because that's where their friends and family gather. So in light of that discussion, this memorandum provides a different approach that focuses the demand and potential impact of the project more directly on the costs associated with the town and whether or not this project would meet the demand specifically for neighborhood parks, which is what the town really provides its residents. The county provides district parks that are open to all residents of Putnam County and beyond. But the town's financial responsibility goes to the maintenance and operation of these neighborhood parks. And that is a demand that's not being met on site. And that conclusion is consistent with the original memorandum. So what the new memorandum does is provides a more focused way of looking at that potential cost, focusing on the neighborhood park impact as opposed to the overall park impact, which was the focus of the original memorandum. So that's why when you take out county parks, when you include county parks, you get a lower number.
But the people can still use the county
The
parks.
people can still use
and
the
we
county
don't.
parks.
The town doesn't pay for the county parks. So in fact, the exclusion of the county parks is logical for what reason?
Because it doesn't specifically address the costs that the town is bearing on maintaining their own parks.
But shouldn't the cost of the town maintaining parks be actually decreased if people go to county parks? See, I don't understand the logic of it.
They provide different services. So
Pardon?
they provide different services. So the county parks don't have ball fields. They don't provide the same type of programming. that the
What county parks are we talking about?
So the county parks that were originally included was Tilly Foster Farm and the Putnam County Trailway.
So the county trailway is bicycle and walking and
Right.
running and whatever. So the baseball fields that we have, you're saying is that the baseball fields that we have, that you can't have in this new community, that there's going to be some extra burden onto those baseball fields.
Yes, because that demand cannot be met on this property. The demand for baseball fields and sports facilities.
Okay, but we have like, how many baseball fields in the town?
5, 6?
Something like that.
1, 2,
Scopino,
3,
Well, the current memo
5,
is
6.
I just want to make sure they're
2,
included.
4, 6. There's 6 and 1 T-ball field.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 6 baseball fields and a T-ball field. And that's, okay. So,
Well, my bigger objection would, by counting the county as it was, all 6 towns participated in that, but 100% of that equation was put onto the town of Southeast, and I don't think that's fair.
Well, I also, as far as county parks, is we do not have control. If the county wanted to alter times that it could be used, by whom it could be used, they would be permitted to do that. So we don't have control, or we can't, if it's not maintained properly, that we don't have control over that either. So that would be one reason that I would be prone to exclude.
I mean, you can look at the
county parks.
events so-called at Tilly Foster's thus far. Now, right now, they have a food place where anyone can go there and eat, things of that nature. But they've had an Easter egg hunt there. I didn't see fishing. They recommend fishing, cross-country skiing. I mean, it's limited use. I mean, they don't have people over there sitting there every day on the weekends waiting for people to come in to use it. We do. They don't do that.
but we don't have cross-country skiing and
No.
in
I know,
Brewster.
but they're
I don't think they
we're
have it
trying to give
there.
them credit for that, and there's no one there. You say we don't have enforcement, but they don't have anything going on there to be done.
Ashley, can I just ask a question? The most that you would recommend is in your October 18, 2017 memo, and the least is what's in the August 22nd, 2017 memo, which has already been run by the planning board, which made a determination. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
Very good.
Could I
Okay,
ask one
now-
question before you go on? The formula that you developed to come up with this, where was that formula from?
So in both analyses, it uses the a look at the demand based on the total acreage. So in one case it was with the county, in one case without.
But is this an
That is
industry
based on the
formula
old-
or something that
It's
we
based
created out
on
of whole
the,
cloth?
on the New York State Office of Parks, Historic Preservation and Recreation's guidelines for the amount of open space that should be permitted per resident, or should be allowed. So that's what that is based on. That's where the demand aspect is based on. When it comes to the actual assignment of the recreation fees, that's where you have more flexibility. It just needs to be based on the demand. So the initial setup establishes the need and the demand with or without county parks. And then in the future, with and without the project, as well as existing conditions. And then the actual assignment of the rec fees in the first memo was based on the assumption that 78% of the demand was being met on site, just on a pure acreage comparison of what the acreage was that they were providing versus the acreage that was needed. And then in the second memo, it's based on the inability to provide the neighborhood park percentage on site. So that was they were meeting 68% of the demand.
In normal parlance, though, recreation fees are recognized in law to be charged when someone subdivides their property. In this instance, there's no subdivision. This is a multifamily housing that wouldn't really abide by what is in town law because of the nature of its construction. Is that true?
Well, when the current law was adopted, it did include the ability for the town to charge rec fees to a multifamily housing development. This is the first project where this is being applied, so this is setting a precedent for any future multifamily housing development.
Correct.
Is it your understanding that these monies, that whatever they end up being, would be limited for use by the town for capital costs, or could they be used for maintenance?
It would have to be used for a recreation purpose consistent with the town.
So that's very different than the recreation fees that are charged with a subdivision, because those are capital costs. They can only, as I understand the law, they can only be used for expenditures for capital purposes. So you're saying these fees, whatever they are,
They would need
could
to
be
be
used
consistent with
for-
the same subdivision regulations that you're referring to.
Well, I'm
Capital
referring to
improvement-
state law.
Capital improvements only.
They would need to be consistent with the state law that you're referring to, the use of these recreation fees.
So then that means only for capital expenditures,
Right.
not maintenance. Okay.
Did you say maintenance?
I-
If you said maintenance, you misspoke.
If I said maintenance, I misspoke,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know you're referencing section 138-104.1 or I of the code.
Yes,
So
so
that's the
that-
one that you're referencing.
Yes, and that's how the board is, how the code informs the town on how to charge the rec fees based on the planning board's recommendation. And then it's ultimately the town board's decision. And the language that's in that section of the code is almost identical to the language that's in the town subdivision regulation, which is based on the town law.
So this is the first time this is ever being applied to this multifamily, if you could say that again?
To a multifamily housing development within the town of Southeast. This is done in other communities throughout New York State.
Okay.
And of course, with the limited amount of space now, because we basically, built out downwards, now we're gonna start going up in a sense with three-story type structures. And this is the only opportunity the town has to, get money to improve their lots. Now, we've had recreation here forever. Okay, we have Castle Park. It's probably 30-plus years old at this point in time. We're receiving calls from residents, letters, it's met its heyday. Now, something like this here, if we get this additional money, it's additional money, we can go there and fix that park and that particular circumstance. However, the problem is, we got, I wouldn't say too many parks, but we got like little parks. And every time I buy a swing set for one, I gotta buy a swing set for 5. So it makes it very difficult. This is only like the third time we've had an opportunity to get any kind of money, because the only time we get this is when someone subdivides a piece of land. Now, someone has a lot and they divide it into 7 lots, it's 7 times $7,500. When Fortune Ridge came in, when they first came in, there was 103, 105 lots down there. They came in, it was $3,000 was the rec fee. By the time they actually paid them, it was $5,000. And I said they paid $500,000. And I compared that to this particular project as well. The amenities down there are unbelievable. I mean, they're, bigger houses that people live in, and I think people that live in an apartment house would be more apt to use recreation of a town than someone who has their own house, who probably has their own pool as well. And one of the things that they said, especially with the recreation department, is many of these people go to the town beach and, meet their friends. Kids in school, if they go to their house and have a pool, but a lot of the activities take place at the beach. So, the fairness is, we have to have a fair dollar value. When I saw the first one, I had to say I didn't agree with it. And I looked at it, I saw the discrepancies in it, and I think it's a 3 times in a lifetime opportunity so far that we have an opportunity to get it, and that's the only way we're going to get it. If another one comes in at some point in time, we have to do the same thing. Everyone has to be treated equally.
I mean, I think, though, the other piece is if you're going to say that you want these units to be assessed at 7,500.
I did not say that, I
No.
just said what they are.
No, you've said that the last town board meeting and this town board meeting. I heard 7,500.
That's
which
right,
is-
that's the maximum.
Right, exactly correct.
And they're paying 1,500.
Well, and guess what happens then? Then perhaps these units aren't built. And then we don't have the opportunity to provide the housing that Mr. Ross stated, or any of the other, let's say, perks, which includes taxes that are paid that can help defer what could be problems with our budget. I mean, that's what it is.
Well, that's-
And we
that-
have to, and we have to look at the fact is when you say things as such as, well, then we can get that money and we can do this and we can do that. I mean, understand the underlying purpose. The underlying purpose is for recreation improvement, and the units themselves are going to be provided with pools and clubs and whatever. I mean, we have to look reasonably at the fact that we have to improve our tax base, particularly in light of the fact that we now have rising healthcare costs, and in addition, we also have rising costs related to our garbage. So, if we don't increase our revenues, then we're going to be in a pickle sooner than later.
And this is a revenue-producing thing, which we're going to discount.
I have to correct one thing that I think is important, and I listened carefully to Mr. Ross on Green Chimneys, and Will can confirm this, but the priorities are only for full-time employees of the Brewster Central School District and North Salem Central School District. So presently, unless we change this, that would not include Green Chimneys. Is that correct? Will?
That's as it's proposed. You could add that to the community
Right.
benefits agreement.
But as proposed, it's like when I was proposing things that aren't in the marketing plan, that would also mean a change.
That's why we have public hearings.
Right.
To get all
And
these great ideas.
Also, I think there is one other parcel in town, which is workforce, could be changed to
There is one other
workforce.
property.
And that is 68 units, if I'm correct on that, I think, or 60.
I don't
60?
recall offhand, but
Well,
it's,
it's the same applicant. So anyhow, I think we do want to be careful when we set a precedent, and we do want everyone to pay their fair share when they come into town.
Okay, being the only one on the town board that actually have children in the Brewster School District and who belong to Lake Tenetta, I can probably say with 100% certainty that nobody who lives in Fieldstone Pond, Reed's Farm, or Hunter's Glen, who have pools, go to Lake Tenetta. Doesn't happen. Or maybe as a guest, they don't, not members.
we bet
Maybe a
on that?
handful of people. The other concern I have is that we have a planning board. 7 members of the planning board approved your original memorandum, and 2 town board members have a problem with it, and they got you to change your original plan. And that's very disconcerting to me that somehow 2 people are trying to circumvent our entire planning board and
I
their
would just like
approvals.
to clarify that I'm standing by my original memo. What I'm doing in the second memorandum is providing another way of looking at this based on
Based on the
the
phone call of 2
similar-
town board members?
Why do you keep
Analysis.
saying that? You went over
Because
to
that's
the
what
county,
happened.
2 people went over to the county, never told us with another project, and all of a sudden we're the bad guys. No, that's not true.
But nothing would, the
no.
planning board agreed to something.
The planning board is
And
not
that was-
God. I think the planning board has made a mistake, and we pointed out discrepancies. What is wrong with that? Crossroads came through with a project. We went through it, we found discrepancies, huge discrepancies. We pointed them out. That doesn't make us bad guys.
We're not saying you're
I'm
bad.
not saying you're bad, it's just, you
But
know,
why
I
do you-
accepted
why-
her memo,
why-
she's our consultant, we hired her. I was fine with it, the planning board approved the
Of course,
7-0.
look at the amount. I'd be happy with it too.
So, all of a sudden, then I got an email yesterday, which I noticed this morning, that said, because I've been busy with my other job, that said, oh, basically now we're changing everything, and I was all confused, I didn't understand it.
Well, it's pretty
It's
easy to
not
understand.
changing things, that's why we're having a discussion.
Well,
I
now
hope
there's
we-
another memo. I mean, but, so now, does your memo have, your second memo have to go back to the planning board to be approved, or?
No, ultimately, it's the town board's decision
So
on
then-
whether or not, on what the rec fees
So
would be.
why was the planning board even involved in the memo in
Because
the first place?
the law requires, as part of the special permit recommendation to the town board, that they include a recommendation on.
So they gave their recommendation.
They gave their
Not
recommendation.
knowing the other facts of the case as well too,
Yes.
by the way.
Well, I don't know what they.
Well,
I
they
don't know.
Look, I want to go on the record as saying Ashley did an analysis initially in August and was asked to revisit it based on certain observations by the board. I really don't have a problem with that. This is a living, breathing document. I think that Ashley did a very good job in her first analysis, and taking into account what the second analysis says, we may not agree to it, but certainly she did a good job. I don't have a problem with that. What we have to do is we have to, as the town board, make the ultimate determination. That's why we have Ashley here, and that's why we're asking her questions. Whether we agree or disagree ultimately with each other is another issue. But the bottom line is, I get where Bob's coming from, that basically, and the other piece, of course, is coming, a day before we have a town board meeting, is, one of the issues I had, but I did speak to you today, and you clarified it. You're giving us a range, and I respect that.
There's been, 2 weeks between the last meeting and now? And I don't think that's an unusual amount of time.
Harold Lepler, principal in this project and a resident of the town. I have a couple of issues.
Excuse me, if you could just speak up a little. Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. Mr. Hay referenced the ability to provide more recreational opportunities in the community. Two things, two projects. Sculpina Park is approximately 50 acres. That was designed by LADA, and it was donated by the owners that developed Mount Ebo, of which I was part of that from its inception. The 50 acres, the improvements in the water sewer that you have there today was done after we completed Fieldstone Pond, and the majority of Mount Ebo was complete. All fees were paid, all recreation fees, all permit fees were paid through the entire development. The improvement of what is Dowensburg Road, the closure of Foggingtown, the widening of Route 22, several of the other improvements were all done at our cost and expense, no contribution from any public authority. That park was a way of saying thank you to the community and to provide services. Terry, Mike, speaking out of turn. Volunteer Park on Zimmer Road. Ms. Eckhart just asked the question of Ashley of rec fees. That was built in full and land donated prior to the first house at 60 senior residences, not 66, but 60, before anything else was built in terms of water plant, sewer plant. Not one house has been built because of the market. That entire property that comprises two full-size baseball fields and a multi-purpose field was done and constructed with private funds and the donation of land. The highway superintendent at that time, Jim Lawler, was out there to inspect almost every day. Tom Fenton, as the town engineer, was there every Thursday. That was all done on the private sector's behalf. No one compelled us to do that. I asked our partner in this, who's sitting here tonight, because he has lands that he purchased that I was part of probably 40 years ago, or very close to 40 years ago, that he's paid taxes on, that abut Lake Teneta. I wasn't going to do this tonight. It's 46 acres. I asked him, Bob, would you donate it to the town for recreation? About half of it is usable, and about half of it you would deem not usable. And still pay a fee or physically construct improvements, is what we just did on Volunteer Park, in favor of the town of Southeast and its residents. I was going to wait till this hearing was over and just say, would you like us to do this? There's no quid pro quo to what I just asked, but it is consistent to what we've done in the past.
Anyone else from the public?
Hi, John Lord. I had some questions. I saw Ashley's memo from August, and I'm not going to get back into that whole thing, but I just wanted to ask about rec fees. They're based on the projected population of the project, and I think I saw that it was about 18,849 people, which would be an increase of about 349 people being residents of that location, right? Yeah.
It's based on the population growth over time. So there's, the analysis has.
Just come close before you start speaking.
The analysis has the existing population of the town of Southeast, the no-build condition, which is the projected population growth within the town without this project, and then the projected population growth with the project, which, and the number of people that are anticipated to live in this project, I believe 349 is correct, and that was based on what was in the applicant's environmental assessment form.
And so when you come up with a number per unit, that's based on 168 units? I'm sorry, the rec fees are, you said, $7,500 per unit?
Well, the town code, it's per lot, not
Per
per
lot.
unit, okay?
Okay.
In this case, we're looking at a number, so it's not gonna be 7,500. It has to be a number between 7,500 and another number.
Zero.
But I'm asking about how many units. You're looking at $7,500 per,
Well, again, it's
Per lot.
70 per lot.
okay, and the lot is 168 lots, or?
No.
No, it's
Mr.
not a
Mr. Lord,
lot.
let me
It's not a
just-
private,
It's
it's not a
70,
house.
the
When
recreation
there's a
fee is
subdivision.
based on a subdivision of a piece of property. If you got 10 acres, it's
Okay.
4 acres on, so let me say 40 acres, okay? And you get 10 lots. The person would pay us $75,000 toward rec fees, which they
Okay.
do currently, okay? In this case, it's not per lot because it's units. So it has to be a number between the high number and low, which could be 0.
But the number of units is,
168.
it's 168. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. So it doesn't matter if it's a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom, each one of those
Yeah.
units will have to pay that amount?
No.
Okay.
What amount? They don't have to pay, it's the amount that we set. the
That
town.
you settle, right.
Right.
Okay. When is that bill due, if you decide on how much they're going
Once
to
we
pay?
decide what it is.
No,
Once
but
it's
when,
set.
when do they pay? I
When
do
would
they
they
have to
pay?
At building permit.
Before,
Building.
right, before the building permit is issued.
Okay, and is that an annual fee, or is that
No,
one time?
one-shot deal.
Okay, and if the projected 349 people is wrong,
Now,
after
that's
it's built,
just a number for the future, their estimate.
that's just for putting the numbers together, okay. Also wanted to find out, who pays the town, county, and school taxes? Since this is rental units, does the development pay that?
The property owner.
I would think
Property
they would,
owner?
Yes.
Okay,
The
and
people that pay rent, they're partial, they're part of their rent would go towards the tax.
Goes toward the
It's
taxes.
not a tax deduction for them, though. It's-
And that's paid per unit or per occupied unit?
That's based on assessment of the entire property.
Okay, all right.
And somewhere in the plan itself, the DEIS, FEIS, there's a number already plugged in for what this will generate,
Okay.
An estimate.
What?
An estimate.
estimate.
And the rates for town, county, and school taxes, are they going to be residential rates or commercial rates?
Lori, do
Well,
you
they
have an
wouldn't be
answer?
commercial.
Non-homestead?
Non-homestead,
So it'll
okay.
be commercial.
All right. The water and sewer for this project,
It's private.
the ownership and management, are they the same as the people at Fieldstone?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And are they both owned by the same company, the water and the sewer? I know that at Fieldstone, I talked to some people there, they said that recently there's a management company that's now billing them for water. Is that going to be the
American
same?
Water Works.
Each has.
Mr. Lipper, would you mind getting up to the mic and speak so everyone can hear it, please?
Both the water company and the sewer company were two separate corporations. The sewer, and council will correct me, has been regulated by the town of Southeast and rates set, public hearings set. The water was done by the Public Service Commission, right? Public entities.
The rental costs, are they going to include water and sewer? Or are those going to be separate?
Meters.
I'm sorry?
They're included in the rent.
They're included in the rent, okay, all right. And, oh, that's good. Making it affordable, that's great. And the projection is, for school-age children, is that there's going to be 26, I think, according to the studies, for this project. If it turns out that the actual number of children exceeds that number, is there any mechanism that the town can use to get the project to pay more for the increased school taxes that we're going to be paying?
No.
No. Okay.
How about if it's less than 26?
Oh, that
What if
would-
it's less? Yeah, is there a way to give back?
I don't
No.
know. I
No.
don't think so. There
No.
isn't.
Okay. I don't
It's a separate tax
think
entity.
that's common, though, but anyway.
Yeah.
Could
Thanks
be.
a lot.
Population's
Thank you.
declining.
Anyone else from the public on this subject matter? Okay, did I hear, what is, what are you doing?
We're going to keep this open, I assume, or not?
What do we do with the recreation fees? How are we gonna do
Well,
that?
we have to,
Yeah.
we're not making a decision tonight.
No,
That's a
no.
public hearing.
But we'd have to keep the public hearing open, I think, Will, because we might change, we don't know what the fee is going to be, is that right?
Not necessarily.
No?
No, people have made their point, and it's now up to the board to deliberate.
Okay, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
No?
Okay,
I was just going to recommend that you close the public hearing, so I'm done.
We read your mind.
okay.
Beat you to it.
Number 3 is a Veterans Cold War exemption. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing, waive the reading of the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone here to speak to that? Just for the record, this Cold War exemption was originally for 10 years, and now it is as long as a person lives in that house, which could be, 10, 15, or 20 years, that it would apply.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, first item on the work session, discussion revised Chapter 60, Article 2, dogs. We've received some emails about a resident that has a concern about some dogs in the neighborhood. She's forwarded some recommendations to the town board. Bob, you've been involved with this, I know. I don't have any problems with the recommendations. They're going to be very hard for us to possibly enforce.
Well, that's the one issue I have, I mean, the recommendations is like checking the house every 2 hours, and, I mean, how, there's no way we could possibly do that.
I will, this one house in particular, the person is complaining about, the SPCA has been out there probably at least a half a dozen times, if not more. Our own dog control officer has been out there, and there's not a lot we can do. The recommendations make a little sense what the person wants, but there's no way to enforce it. So what do we want to do?
No, I would like to tighten up our laws. I know it might be difficult to enforce, but if there's a real problem, we might be able to make it enforceable. But I would also like to take some time to look at other codes in other towns to see how helpful they can be to tighten things up and
I
make sure
received
the
a phone
dogs are
call
humanely
from
treated.
Mr. Ross today from the ASPCA. He was trying to get here tonight to a meeting to speak about this. Unfortunately, couldn't do it. But he basically said that he's been there several times and he doesn't feel that there's any problem with the condition of the dogs. He would like to come to one of our other meetings, the next one before we take action, but like Tony said, he was here, he checked it out, our door control officer did. I understand the Village of Brewster Police were there. I don't know.
We have someone from the public who wants to make a comment. Go ahead. Name for the record, please.
Lisa Tremblay, how are you?
Good.
I was involved a little bit with this situation. It became a Facebook petition, and there's a lot of concerned citizens about these particular dogs. Ultimately, I have a good relationship with the Putnam County SPCA, Ken, the two Kens, and we really can't do anything about this right now because our laws are a little dated, and they really don't cover defending the animals. In a perfect world, us pet lovers and advocates and dog aficionados would, have our dogs cuddle with us and walk them on leashes and dog parks, and everything would be a perfect world, but it doesn't work like that. And to enforce some of what we need to, the town of Putnam Valley did something not that long ago, and I have copies for you all to review. I know this is a work session, so ultimately the goal is to amend the code. I have copies for you. I'm a crazy dog person, so I'm really, I'm sorry, bear with me. On the back, the second page is Town of Southeast Dog Code, which needs to be adjusted desperately. And there we go. And on this page, on the front page, is Putnam Valley's code, which adds protecting them in extreme weather conditions. Also, tether laws. Tether laws are very hard to enforce, but stating something to the effect where it must be of sufficient length to permit exercise without the danger of entanglement and to allow the dog to reach supplies of food and water. Now, do you get involved in a specific length, like 8 feet, 7 feet? So we have, from one of the neighborhoods and concerned citizens, a veterinarian, and she's here tonight, and also Ken from the SPCA that's willing to meet with you in a private session to discuss how do you amend, the laws for protecting the dogs.
Well, we can invite him to our next meeting.
Okay.
And it's going to be a continued discussion.
Okay.
And take whatever recommendations, again, length, whatever. Again, the woman that sent us a letter, she had some good suggestions, but again, how do you enforce them? That's the bigger part.
Okay, and also the town of Putnam Valley added Putnam County SPCA into their code, if you see on Article 51-12 of enforcement. So it wasn't only the dog control officer who, in all sincerity, is hard to get hold of and enforce. I don't know whether we don't have the funds. I don't know anything about the budget for this. But adding the Putnam County SPCA into our code so that they can enforce and administer provisions
Doesn't the
might be a good...
Doesn't the SPCA, aren't they the dog control officers for Putnam County?
Yes, they have a contract with Putnam.
Yes.
Well, they have a contract with Putnam Valley.
Putnam
Yeah.
Valley.
Sorry, I meant Putnam Valley.
Yeah,
But they do have also the
And
county.
that's why they had to include them in theirs.
right.
But the county does fund them.
Yeah, so
No,
the-
the county
gives them
funds
a
them.
minimal amount of money.
minimal.
Like
No, it was just
Yeah.
being raised.
$4,000.
No, it's 40
Yeah.
grand now. They
No,
just raised
they
it.
just raised it a lot this year.
To what, do you know?
I think 40.
Well, they asked for 140, which they did not get.
They were giving them
but-
5 in the last
No, no,
couple
it
of
was,
years.
there was I don't want to misquote, but there
Yeah.
was an increase.
Oh, I'd
But-
love for
but
that to
They
happen.
did go, I usually go to their fundraiser every year. I
Yeah,
only get like
tomorrow
4 or
night.
5 yes.
It's
No,
almost
it's
10
much-
times what they were getting before.
Yeah.
Good.
It's a lot.
But
So-
I don't know if it's been approved, but that's what they
Yeah.
put in the budget.
So if someone calls and says, I see that, with these particular dogs on Tenetta Lake Road, and he's been there, and in all fairness, these were fighter dogs, they were, this guy took them in, but being, chained to a 4-foot leash is not ideal, and supposedly this resident has agreed to make some indoor runs in the basement in the winter. That's yet to be seen. So anyway, something to
But
consider.
Putnam Valley does have a contract separately from Putnam County with the Putnam County SPCA.
Right.
So that's why I'm,
Almost every town does. Our town contracts with the Putnam County Humane Society. So
Which are not enforcers.
they're
and-
not enforcers,
No,
but
and
the
they,
SPCA acts on behalf of all of Putnam County.
yeah, they do. But according to Ken, who is the SPCA, said he has to be incorporated into the town code. And we can ask him why. I can get a letter from him or have him meet
I'll
here.
ask the town attorney to research that as well.
I mean, when
Okay.
I started looking into this, when I saw the emails and the Facebook post, I was actually very upset that it turned out that nobody from the town of Southeast realized these dogs hadn't been licensed in over a year, which means they didn't get their rabies shots. So when I started looking into it, I got our dog control officer to go after this guy. They did get their dogs rabies shots, which means they saw the vet, which
Good-
I would
good for you.
assume, hopefully, the vet saw the dogs and didn't think they were abused and neglected. They did then finally pay their fee to the town clerk. I mean, it's only like $8, not a lot of money. but
Right.
The whole idea of having a dog license is to make sure it has rabies shots. So I was disappointed to see that these dogs for way over a year were not licensed.
Mm-hmm.
But that condition is corrected now.
All I can say is, over the years, whether it's just Town Southeast or any town you go to, I know when I'm walking around campaigning and things of the nature, the number of dogs, there are more dogs unlicensed probably than there are licensed. And I don't know how we control it. A complaint like this brings a person to the door, you check it out. So
Right.
it's a difficult thing to do. I mean, you can't check every dog or whatever, so it's based on a complaint.
Yeah,
So,
I'm
but
not,
there's tons of them out
the
there that
issue
are-
isn't about being licensed, although that's what we're supposed to do as, responsible dog owners. But more so than that, than a piece of paper that licensed the dog, is the welfare of the animal and how it's cared for.
But to be licensed means you have to have rabies shots.
Yeah,
And
okay, a
which
rabies,
means
rabies
that
shot.
a
Which
vet
you could,
would look at the dog.
so let me tell you that, Pet Craze, which is next to Marshall's, offers low-cost or free vaccinations. And I know this guy went there with a puppy recently.
But apparently he was turned away for some reason.
I
or
don't know-
something.
I don't know what it
That's what I
was.
was told. I don't know what the issue was, but.
But we need to do better, so
I've,
hopefully we can amend this.
A quick question for you. When you said the dog control officer, ours is difficult to reach, can you be more specific?
Okay, here's what happens when someone calls. We
'Cause,
don't give
we
the
don't
dog
give her
control
number,
officer's
that's
phone
why.
number to them.
Right.
We, the town clerk, contacts the dog control officer, and she in turn returns the calls to the resident.
Okay, so that has taken longer than.
Well, if somebody
And if
calls
it's
it.
after hours
I
of the
just-
weekend, and
Right,
the town
right.
clerk's not
So then you
there.
go to the Putnam County SPCA.
Okay, but you found that it took
Well,
longer
they
than
call the
it
sheriff's
should've.
department, and the sheriff's
Right,
department's
I don't
supposed to
know,
contact our
right,
dog
it is on the
control.
website that says if after hours, if you can't get the town clerk, you're supposed to call the non-emergency number for the sheriff's department, they in turn would call our dog
Right,
control officer.
right.
So there will be a delay, it's not gonna be immediate response.
I think the goal here is to change the code, because what we have in Southeast isn't protecting the animals.
And I'd be willing to look into that. and,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
would
see
really,
what
I would
work.
really like to see that, and we've got a group over here, over there, over there.
We just have to come
No.
up with something that,
Yeah,
like Lynn said, maybe we gotta see what other
Yeah,
towns.
take a
Yeah,
look
I
at
mean, I think this is something, obviously tonight, I especially cannot speak for the rest of the town board, but I do think this is something that we're all in agreement with, and we want to improve our
Good.
code as much as we can.
That's great.
And we would like to see it enforceable, but even if it gives us a chance, a better chance of enforcement, I think that's something that everybody wants.
So Bob, you taking that on?
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Okay.
See what I
I'm
can do.
here to
Contact
help.
person
I'm
on
here to
this?
help. Call.
Your contact person is Bob
If
Collins.
you, if you
We'll hook
find,
up.
aside from Putnam Valley, if you do find another town that you think is really good, you know how to get in touch with
Yeah,
any of
you
us.
just email the group or?
Yep,
Yeah, you can
perfect.
email us at the town board address and we will get
Okay.
it.
And if you
All
could get the Ken and the Ken, or whichever Ken,
Right.
I
Yeah.
will,
To-
I
to-
will
to
speak to Ken, I have a
communicate, yeah.
relationship with him and
Right.
see what he recommends.
Yeah. I think it's important to have a veterinarian there too.
Yeah, that's-
Maria Logano,
yeah.
she's
Yep.
willing to be part of that
And I would definitely
discussion.
take your
Because
recommendation.
Ken sees a lot of abuse. I don't know if he agrees with having a tether law, but I think that the wording that it must be of sufficient length kind of covers maybe
It's
enough.
subjective.
Yeah, it is subjective. That's the problem.
And I think, if you want my legal opinion, I think that's unenforceable because it's vague.
and subjective.
I mean,
Yeah,
so,
anything-
Hey, I'm all for putting 8 feet in there. That's fine. I saw that somewhere.
Maybe we'll make it analogous to the size of the dog.
Yeah, that's right. And the type of dog and the aggression of the dog as well, so. Anyway,
Thank you.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Hi.
Yes.
Lori Dotman, 45 Hillcrest Avenue, and Lisa, thank you for doing a great job. I just wanted to speak really quickly. My wife is the one who created the petition and who sent it to you. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here this evening. She's away on business, but I'm not going to be redundant. Lisa did a great job at covering all the information, but I just wanted to say that my wife would also, Eileen McDermott is her name, would be very interested in attending that session if you do have a private discussion. So, you know, or if you make a vote on it or are able to change anything somehow. So if you are able to, you know, keep us in the loop or.
No, it should be a public discussion, so
Yeah.
you're in the loop, because it requires more than a quorum, so.
Okay, well,
I mean,
I'm just saying,
yeah.
whoever else, I mean, she's spoken with Ken, she's spoken with the ladies who have attended here this evening. But yes, it's definitely about changing the code. I'm not going to go into the petition that she wrote, because I'm assuming that all of you had already seen it and read it in depth. But yes, it's a changing the language, and I know it's subjective, and I know it's hard to enforce, but it's also just about, you know, perhaps re-evaluating the fine too as well, you know, that we currently have. So,
if I could also point out, the fines are set by state law, not by local
Okay.
law.
Okay, well, thank you very much. This is a little bit more of her wheelhouse, so I apologize if I'm a bit out of my spectrum here, but I just wanted to say a little something on her behalf, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the subject matter? Seeing none, move to the discussion on 2018 town budget. Liz?
As everyone knows, the last time we were here, I had stated that I do not think that the tax cap needs to be busted, crashed, or whatever language. Part of what I think is very important is anyone here and anyone watching, if you could go online and look at the budget, because it's important that you understand how this budget is created. It looks a little imposing, but at the end of the day, it isn't. What you have to do first is look at expenses and revenue. Revenue is created by different things, by permits being purchased, by planning board. You heard tonight, there was an applicant who pays a lot to cover our engineering costs. But what really matters to everyone out there is revenue is created by taxes. Expenses are paid by revenue. How we create this budget is we look at, and if you go online, you will look at expenses, and what you'll see is that there is a line or a column for 2015 actual, which nothing is there. You have the next line or column for 2016 actual. The next is 2017 adopted budget. The next column is 2017 estimated up through, doesn't say it, but I asked our town accountant, it was through the end of August of 2017. Thereafter, to the right side, you have what the column states 2018 requested budget. So what's important is that you have to analyze and look at the fact that we had actual expenditures in a certain year, a budget which is adopted in 17, and how much of that budget have we used or not used? And then why are we asking in 2018 for a different figure? So keep that in mind. Because when you go through this budget, the last time when I had spoken, and I said there's a lot of fat in the budget, and we can tighten our belts, it doesn't mean cuts. What it means is you look at the different columns, and then you say, why are we budgeting a certain amount? That's what you have to do. So, for instance,
Tom, please, when you get there.
pardon?
When you get to the page, tell me.
Sure. So, for instance, we have the town board videographer. Don't get nervous. All right? So that's on page 1. So on page 1, we have the town board videographer. And that town board videographer, what we have, 2016 actual, $6,150. The adopted budget for 17 budgeted $8,500. Up to the end of August, we have expended $3,600. The requested budget for 18 is $8,500.
No change.
That's right, there's no change. But what's important is to look at the fact that through August, we've only spent $3,600, and in 16, we only spent $6,150. Okay, this is small figures, but that'll give you an idea as to, when you look at the $8,500, when we're looking to bust the tax cap, is that an appropriate figure to have the $8,500 budgeted? Or should it be more of a figure that is closer to $6,000? Because in essence, what happens is if we budget for $8,500, then that is $2,500 more in this budget, which you may have to pay taxes for. Now, that's a small piece. But what happens is when you consistently do that and you don't use the budgeted amount. So we're not going to use that budgeted amount this year, that $8,500, but whatever was left over in that amount goes into the reserves. Of course, it's a function of all of the other figures, but that's what you have to look at. That's what this is about. So when someone says, well, you're cutting the budget, I'm not cutting anything. The idea is that you're looking at the actual figures that happened in 16 and are happening in 17. So that's just one example.
Can I speak to that example?
Sure.
Okay. Yes, we spent $6,150 in 2016. Basically, say it's the same number this year, it's $8,500. There's been talk on this board about doing additional meetings, so that's taken into consideration. It's X number of dollars per meeting, depending on how length of the meeting. And another thing too is that this, especially in this particular budget, we are going out to bid this year on almost all the outside contractors and vendors, with the exception of maybe 2. And that number, again, if it's adjusted, would be minimal. So that's how I look at that one.
Yeah, except that what happens is when you're faced with cracking, crashing, bashing the tax cap, you don't say, hey, let's add services. Because when you add services, when you say we were talking about expanding services, you can't do that. You can't expand services where you're anticipating what you've said, Tony, is going to be a tax increase. Okay, so you don't do that. You don't add extra fat into the budget because the taxpayers are the ones that are paying for it. You see, the interesting part is this isn't a private piggy bank. All of you out there have got to look and see what we are spending your monies on. Because as Tony said the last time we were here, we have a contingency. We have our rainy day fund, which he quite adequately and aptly described as something that he has, and this board has, built up over the past several years. The state comptroller recommends 10% of your budget in that reserve. Because remember, that reserve has been created by your tax dollars in the past. We're using it as our fund. All right? Tony said the last time he was here that indeed he has used that in the past to cover certain items, specifically health insurance increases. So right now, if it's 10% of our total budget, it's $1.8 million. That's what it should be. We now have approximately or anticipated $1.9 million. So we're $100,000 over. So to budget this year when the tax cap is at threat, we're threatening the tax cap, is not prudent fiscally. because we do have the wherewithal, we do have that reserve. And I know what Tony's gonna say, we can't use any part of that reserve for the garbage piece, that district. We can't do that. Well, that's okay, we can't use it, but there's other ways of cutting this budget so that when you take the increase in the amount that it had to be, that has to be placed into our budget to cover the garbage, there is a way of lessening and reducing, as I'm going to continue to speak about, of the rest of the budget. It's a percentage, it's not all of it. So if you continue to look, and I'm not going to sit here for 3 hours and go over every one of these, because this is what we should be doing with department heads, and we should be sitting down together and doing this. And when I say we, meaning obviously the town board, not all together, because we need to do this in front of you. But this is what we have to look at, all of these different little tabs. But just by way of a little more of an explanation. You look also at, so that's an easy one. We have Justice Court Security on page 3. Now, the Justice Court Security on page 3, when you look at it, you have budgeted at $30,000. So it's budgeted at $30,000. Only $12,900 has been used through August 31st. But we're going to budget this at $30,000. Justice Court Security. In 16, the actual was $28,917. Through the end of August, it's $12,900. We're budgeting it again at $30,000. So that's another example.
Wait, the actual in 2016 was 28.9, which is 29,000.
Correct.
We adopted 30,000. I'm
Yep.
recommended the same. That's $1,000.
No, but estimated for 2017 is $12,900. Not estimated, pardon me, the actual that we're using. That's,
Again, that is not a complete number.
how is it not complete?
Well, because we don't know if we got the actual bill in from the courts. Especially with the courts, the village runs behind sometimes a month to 2 months. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be closer to $28,000 than even if you double the
Okay.
number 24.
Okay, but you see, this is the budget that we're given.
I
So
know.
now I'm asking the questions, you're answering the questions, well, that's fine. But let's get that figure. We can't now say to everybody, I'm going to budget the 30, even though I don't really have that figure quite yet. Because that's important. That's an important figure for us to have.
It is.
Yes.
And matter of fact, let me just tell you another thing. Before I got here, that figure was like close to $40,000.
Yeah, well, we used-
$45,000.
Yeah.
And we saved a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah, but now is what I'm talking about, saving money and not overtaxing the taxpayers of Southeast in 18. And it was a great thing because we have the shared services with the Village of Brewster, and that's how we reduced it. I understand that.
Okay.
But that's just another example. I
Now,
mean,
again, if you don't mind, I truly admit I underestimate revenues intentionally.
Absolutely.
And I overestimate expenses intentionally because next time I'll bring a video to show exactly what happened in 2012 budget. Basically, about the same time, actually it was in September of 2012, the supervisor read off, he was $125,000 short in one line, and he was short $100,000 other one. I sat in the audience, I said, that's $225,000. That's big money.
well, here's what happens, though. The trend analysis, when you look at this whole budget, the trend analysis of the revenue items are all trending downward in 2018. That's what this budget says. However,
Revenues trending down?
absolutely. When you look at all your revenue in here,
Mm-hmm.
they trend downward for 18. But guess what? In 16 and 17, they were all trending upward. So what happens now is you're anticipating, your budget is anticipating revenues going down after 2 successive years, 16 and 17, when you had them trending upward. And now you have them trending downward. You got to look at it and analyze it. Every line of this. When you look at every line of this, it almost appears as if most of, well, I'm not going to say the majority, but even if 50% of it was copied from previous budgets, that's what it is. There's got to be a better analysis. In the past, we've been lucky. We've been lucky because we're able to do this and build up that $1.9 million. We did it. Okay, fine. But now is the time when you're faced and confronted with the fact that you have got to tighten your belt, is where you can't start downward trending your revenues instead of, and forgetting that you had 16 and 17 revenues trending upward. I don't know why we're trending down, and I get it. You're minimizing your revenues, and you're saying, oh, I'm gonna overexpense and I'm gonna under revenue, but when you do that, and you have a tax issue, and you have to charge your taxpayers more money, I think you gotta be a little more prudent than that. You can't just say, well, let's prepare more for that rainy day. No, now's the rainy day. Now's when this happens, and now is when the taxpayers look to us to say, no, we're not increasing the taxes. That's now. Continue to look at this. You have, little pieces of stuff like supervised postage. I mean, things like that. And then what happens is you end up with the inimitable zeros. So what happens is, for instance, you have on page 4, you have conferences, supervisors' conferences, all right? And it's just saying for an example. So what happens is with the supervisor conferences, you end up with conference, $500 budgeted, small potatoes, man, a nice dinner out. But for 2016, actual, 2017 to date, 0. But we still have the $500 there. Small potatoes, but I don't think Tony goes to conferences.
I do.
Oh, okay, but then he pays for himself.
Sometimes, depending on what the item is, but you have to understand, if I take out 1 penny from this budget, and it's not 1 penny, because you're mentioning some 30,000, you're talking this number, that number.
Yep.
With the way the tax cap is today, if you remove any item, and I'm telling you since I got here, and the tax cap came in, because it actually came in about the same time I did, if you remove it, how do you replace it in the future? Raise taxes. We have been, for the past 5 years, this is the 6th year now of my budget, and we have been like this. The town's employees have received everything they wanted as far as materials, computers, which they never had before. Everything is fixed here.
Correct.
Everything is going just like this here. The only reason we are busting this tax cap is because the garbage contract came in at $400,000, something beyond our means. If it wasn't for the tax cap, I don't believe we'd be having this conversation today, because I would budget that money. I've spent over $890,000, which is about $150,000 a year. Sounds like a lot to start. $150,000 by using those reserves.
Okay, so here's what happens. We end up having to bid on a new garbage contract. We took the lowest bid, and we did that way back when, all right? We now know, back then, how much this is gonna cost, correct? But what happens is we have no information about how it's going to impact. How is this going to impact our budget? And maybe when you have that information, way back when we did this, then you can look at your spending throughout the year. A budget isn't something that, or spending isn't something that you just say, here's the budget, that's it, I'm gonna just do something with it. It's a living, dynamic budget. So what happens is we now know, way back when, that we're going to have to suck it up because of that amount of money, right?
We couldn't change anything.
No, you could.
It happened,
Because you
it
could.
happened after we had the public hearing on the budget.
Absolutely, Tony, you have to please, just listen. What I'm saying is, when we spent during the year, we should have been we should have told the taxpayers, hey, guess what? This is $400,000, I don't know if it's $400,000 over more, but this is gonna be $400,000. And by the way, we're $40,000 under for 17, because guess what happened? We had to pay more money in 17. Well, we should have not only known about that, we should have known about the impact on this budget, so then we could have looked at some of the items you have here and prepare better. So for instance, we have here, this is snow. I see our highway superintendent is here. So here we have snow. Let's look at the snow removal. So we have a snow removal.
Liz, what page are you on?
I am now on page 68.
Okay.
So we have on snow removal, actual for 16, actual, $215,359. The 2017 budget, the budgeted amount, was $329,510. Up to this date, we have $170,612.12. Haven't checked the Farmer's Almanac lately, but I'm hoping that we don't have a snowstorm the rest of October, November, December, but who knows? So what happens is we then have over here for, and that's snow removal supplies. So we have 329,000 budgeted, again. So snow removal supplies. Well, apparently we didn't use the 170,000, the 329,510 up to this date. And we all know it's probably not going to snow, hopefully, the end of October, and maybe the best chance would be late November through December. What I'd like to know is with those snow removal supplies, if we've now rebudgeted it, why don't we buy supplies now using the 176,12 and reduce the snow removal supplies budgeted, requested budgeted figure? Right then and there, and when you look at the rest of those figures, look what you have. You have 215, you have 47,605 actual for 16. You have 2017, 130, and estimated, this is for snow removal overtime, right now, up to this date, 62,071.06, yet we're still budgeting for 120 in overtime. So what's happening basically is when you don't use that money, it goes into your reserves.
To the highway reserve, yes.
Yeah.
Not our reserve, the highway reserve.
The highway reserve, exactly.
No, that's not ours.
Well,
Yes,
okay, it's the highway reserve, but it's part of our budget.
But you can't, I mean, to mess with even snow?
No,
I mean,
no, what we're not messing. What we're doing is we're saying that right now, we have the ability, right now, snow removal supplies, all right? So 176,12, and the adopted budget is $329,000.
That's right.
So why don't we go out and buy some salt now and not worry too much about $329,510.18 and reduce that budgeted amount? Let's use that amount, because that's a contingency that's been built into the budget. So why don't we just buy the salt now? Or why don't we buy the salt? Of course we can say, well, no, Liz, don't do that now, we won't use it, but then we're gonna still budget this amount for next year when we could have already purchased the supplies, reduced the budgeted amount, and had less of an impact on your tax cap.
Well, depending on how much salt and everything they have, we have a storage problem.
Correct.
And when something in a highway line such as that there, you have no idea. My God. One year, I think the first year I came here, we had maybe used 100,000 of the $400,000 budget or something. It was like a really ridiculous figure. We were so lucky, it was unbelievable. And then, of course, 2 years later, you used more than that.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is in 16, 215, 359. Adopted 17, 329, 510. Up to this point, 176.12. I'm just repeating the same figures. What I'm saying is, you can't, in my opinion, use taxpayers' money because you don't want to take a chance when you have the money budgeted right now in 17.
The money is waiting it's taxpayers' money in a bank, collecting interest, and if there's a need for that money, it's there.
Yeah, well, but that's not the point. You don't want to say to the taxpayer, you've got to pay more in taxes this year because we want to still keep that money in the bank. No, you can't bank taxpayers' monies because it's not like, you're not banking monies. What are you banking the monies for? A contingency like this. This is what it is. We're going to charge you more taxes and break that cap. That's what we're going to do. We're going to break that cap so we can have more money in the bank that gains interest.
You have to understand, the breaking of the cap has nothing to do with any other budget line except a special district.
That's incorrect.
It is not incorrect.
It is incorrect, because then if that were the correct way to go, then what you should have been saying right from the get-go, we should have taken that increased amount for the garbage and said to everyone back then, hey, guess what, guys? We got to break the cap this year because of it.
Well,
no.
you would have. If I had known at the time, we would have done that.
But we knew what the amount was. Why wasn't that amount then?
Because we didn't.
No, you knew that amount when
But we all knew the amount. We all knew the amount.
I'm saying you, the generic you, the town board.
Okay, so that happened at the end of October.
Correct.
We already had our public hearing, and we passed the budget the first week in November. You didn't have time to have another public hearing and do it.
Tony, the bottom line is, it doesn't mean you have to crash the cap simply because of that.
You do.
You do not. There is an increase in that one district that can be made up from all of the other lines in the budget. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Ron
The
Hunt
fact
said he
that
spoke to you and told you that.
Ron Hunt can tell me anything in the world, he's incorrect.
Wow.
Because you can't tell me that just simply because the garbage district goes up, 21, 22%, whatever the percent is, that means, that is not the entire budget.
No,
The
it's
entire
not.
budget has not gone up by 21%.
It's a special district.
Correct. And you can make up for that special district, that increase in the special district, by decreasing the rest of our expenses and increasing the rest of the revenues. You have underestimated revenues as the budget officer
I
and
agree.
increased expenses. And you don't have to do that. You're doing it. You have continued a contingency. There is still a contingency in here. There is a contingency in here where Tony has budgeted a contingency amount, which increases the taxes again. If you take away that contingency, because we just can't do it this year. We can't have a contingency this year. There's contingencies in each and every one of these lines. You can't add another contingency. And the contingency
But
is
then,
there.
Liz, wouldn't we break it next year? And
Yes.
and
No,
also,
no, absolutely not.
well, no,
When-
and what I don't
We don't
understand,
know what the cap
on the
would be,
special districts, I don't understand how that, not everyone in this town
Tell
is
me,
in the
Linda,
garbage district.
are we going to, are we then
All
going to every year? Are you saying every year we've got to break the tax cap?
No.
No, not
Okay,
at
then
all.
how is it that you're not?
If we fill the gap this year with $400,000 for special districts only, the money goes into one district, special district, okay, $400,000. The gap is, the hole is filled forever. If you can't fill it with contingency, and if you did, the $400,000, you haven't solved the problem. You took not $1.8 million or $1.9 million, you take 400, you're down to 1.5. Next year, you gotta use $400,000 to tap it again. If you charge the taxpayers now for that, you fill the gap, it's done.
How do you fill the gap?
It's done, you got real money.
Tony, you're the one that said at the last meeting, I believe it was, I have the minutes here, that this is going to increase every year.
Yeah, 60 grand.
Yeah, exactly. So
I
it's
can- we
increasing
can-
every year.
If we put $400,000 in that account this year, next year, we're $60,000 behind the hole, okay? I can make up that $60,000.
No, we can make up the 60,000 now. We can make up everything now by just looking at this budget and tightening your belt. That's
take
what you
the-
can.
You can't take apples and you're
Okay.
mixing with oranges.
There ain't no apples and oranges.
There is.
I have, so what happens is you have 16, nothing, 0. 17 to date, 0 on several of these lines. And then there's still a budgeted amount. That totals $71,870. $71,870. You have other spending. You have spending where in 16, the amount was not 0, but not a lot. You have a high budgeted amount in 17. Actual to date is a low amount, yet we're still in 18 budgeting the high amount. When you look at these savings and you take a hard look, which we don't necessarily have to do, we can take a less than hard look, you're looking at over $1 million that we can save by tightening our belts. And I asked Ron Hunt how we get these monies back in. I did. He said, oh, sure, you can still put them back in. The point is we don't have to eliminate the 1,107,983, but we have to eliminate at least half of that. That's what we have to do.
You can put them back in. You know how you do that? Raising taxes to put it back in the budget.
No, because you didn't have the right to have it in there in the first place, because we're taxing people on it. I will show, absolutely. You can look at every one of the lines. And you know something? It's something that everyone has to be concerned about, because you don't want to continue to pay taxes and break this cap. We don't have to break this cap.
You know, let's go back to 2012, the day I walked into this, and I told you I was a captain of the Titanic. Now I know why people are laughing at me, at least in this area here, okay? They were laughing at me. Oh, you're ridiculous. We're not. We had $96,000 in the bank. We had just raised taxes the past 2 years, 27.5%. Now, in my term, we built up the surplus to $1.9 million, okay, which is in good graces with the controller's office by maybe $100,000.
$100,000 over.
Whoop-de-doo, okay? We need this. You have no idea where this is going to go. I can't believe I've done what I've done, and I'm getting beat up for it.
I'm not getting beat up. What
Oh,
I'm saying,
I most certainly think I am.
Tony,
I'm
you
telling
take everything too personally.
Would you rather have $96,000 in the bank and no surplus, or have $1.8 million in surplus?
No, what I'd like to do.
And the taxpayers never broke the tax cap once in all those years. I honestly don't know how I did it, but I do know how I did it, because the day I got in there, I implemented a whole bunch of things, and it changed the world.
Correct, but you
And now you
have,
wanna destroy
you
it.
have the 1.9 million. No, Tony, I'm not destroying anything.
You're destroying
You're not that far off. What you're telling everyone out there is we have to bust the cap, and you yourself said that you've used that surplus in the past. You've used it for the past 6 years to the tune of $800,000.
Yes.
That's my recollection.
890.
So it has been
Yes,
used.
I
And what
admit
you're
it.
saying is this year, we're not going to use any of it, and I know you can't use it for the garbage district, heard it, but you can use it for the rest of the budget.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
But then how do I put it back?
What do
How
you mean,
do
how do you put it back? You're now saying
you
that,
take-
you're now saying you're doing this you're doing this right now, so then all the subsequent years, we don't have to do this. That's what you're saying, correct? You're
No.
saying, let's raise it, this is it, 400,000 erased, don't worry about it, and everything is fine.
I look at it, if I'm gonna climb that mountain to get a bucket of water, I'm not gonna go up and just fill it halfway, I'm filling it the whole way. In the past 2 years, like I told you early on, health insurance went up $200,000.
You used the reserve for that.
And whatever the numbers were, okay, we paid it. Again, we would not be here tonight discussing this, because I don't think anyone would have a problem where we're at, what we're doing. It was a garbage contract that did it. I would use the reserves. I'm not gonna, could I take $300,000 or $150,000 to balance it? But I want that money, because coming down the road, next year, $60,000 for garbage, at the minimum, which has to come from that one account, okay? Now, contractual obligations to our employees, it's $100,000 next year, okay? You take $100,000 out now, or 300, whatever number you want to take out, where do I get the money?
But what about revenues? Tonight, we're having this big discussion as to whether or not we should have Barrett Hill.
Yeah.
We've had previous discussions about Crossroads, but where are we building up our revenues? That's a tax base.
Well, one of it
Those
is by
tax-
paying recreation fees.
Well, that's
If
how-
they
but-
pay, if they pay the higher fee, that's revenue we need for this town.
Correct.
If not, where do we get the money to
Correct,
do it?
correct, but if you overtax or you over,
not
if you over,
overtaxing.
no, if you overassess it, then they wouldn't be here.
That's not overassessing, that's not overassessing
Well, what,
whatsoever.
at $7,500 a unit?
I didn't, no, we didn't
Okay,
say
fine,
7,500.
fine.
We're at 3,500 maybe.
So-
It could be 7,500, and they came in at
So,
1,500.
so your bottom line is, part of this budget, remember, Tony just said 300,000. Part of the budget is $150,000 in contingencies, right in here. Drop that right away. Drop that. You have $150,000 in contingency. You have it here.
Which one?
Wait, hold on. The contingency, right here, page 17. I don't know, it says 50,000 contingency contractual, sub-contingency contractual 75,000. That adds up to 125,000.
Okay, so, oh, Jesus, now I know what you're talking about. You mean to tell me we shouldn't have any contingency?
Correct.
When I got here, we had no contingency.
No, we have $1.9 million,
No,
Tony.
no,
You can't
no.
add contingencies in a budget when you're talking about breaking the cap.
I put contingency every year.
I know you do, but you can't this year, because we're
can-
busting the cap.
I cannot believe this conversation.
Well,
I'll tell you
I
what,
can't believe it
You
either.
guys knock yourself out, but I'm gonna tell you right now, every dollar you take out of this budget, whether it's revenue and increase it, I've watched it happen before. I'll play the video at the next meeting. I wanna show you what can happen. I was not here. We are short $125,000 in revenue. That is real money, okay?
No, what's
We're
real
off-
money
We're
is-
off 100, no. If you project revenues, which I underestimate, in the past, they've overestimated. You want to go exactly what to the number is? I'm telling you, don't even think about doing it. You're going to do it, and I'm going to have to live with whatever you do. The public's
No.
going to have to live with whatever you do.
Well, let's ask a
but I'm tell-
taxpayer, do you want to break the tax cap and add all of this money when we have the ability to trim this budget?
You can trim the budget, but it's not going to help the tax cap because it's a special district.
No,
But you say
but
that's
Tony,
wrong.
it's a special district, is a piece of an entire budget, isn't
Yes,
it?
yes, it
It's
is.
a piece of the budget.
But what broke the budget was the piece that you can't tax the people for because the people in the village don't do it and commercial
That's good.
properties
No,
don't do it.
but you can. You can, because that's part of the budget. You keep on saying, I mean, if that were the case, then forget it. Forget it, everybody. The next time we have a garbage contract, forget it. Every time we got a tax. No, we have to work this budget. It is not that simple. Oh, that's it.
Do it.
Raise the flag.
Do it.
I am gonna do it.
I realize you're going to.
Thank you.
But I'd like to mention, because I thought we were kind of at assignments, and we were trying to look for savings, other savings as well as
There's
not
lots of
cutting.
savings in here, Lynn. I got a lot of savings. I got the savings in what you're gonna bring up as far as the health insurance. I got it. I got all my savings in here. And I wanna know what all the health insurances are for, because we have like $300,000+ for that with no explanation. So let's talk about it.
How about, okay, let me answer that one quick. I don't want to say the number because I don't know it offhand. The health insurance is for 39 active employees, $735,963.54, and retired employees, 26, at the cost of $258,540.20. Total cost just under $1 million by $6,000. How's that?
Perfect.
Yeah, I thought so.
Right, and in the past,
another thing I
you've
did-
taken money out of the reserves to pay it to the tune of $890,000 over the past 6 years.
What am I gonna do?
I think it's a great idea,
Don't
because we
forget-
didn't break the
Don't
cap.
forget, when Tony Hay came in here, we changed the structure of how much the employees paid. When I came in, it was like nothing for individuals, and I think it was 20% for, management employees and all the employees. I found out they're only paying 10%, so I got a bundle of money right then and there, okay? And now the new employees, when they're coming in, paying 25%. I looked to the future, we corrected the problem. It's not, it's a problem based on what happened in the past, but I sure held it.
But what you did though, is you looked at the budget and you said the budget can't take these expenses, and you changed it. And that's a good thing.
And these are
And
the
now
good
we have to
things.
look at this budget again.
These are good
There are repetitious figures in this budget that it's almost like it was just copied. It wasn't anything, it's like even though in the past, and when you look at the historical figures, it doesn't sustain it.
Because you can't, when you move forward in the future, because it is a ridiculous tax cap number, how do you justify raising taxes in 2 years, 27%? And in 6 years, I've raised it 5 and change.
Tony, you did a good job. We just gotta work harder.
I can't get
That's
over
all.
I have to work harder?
No, we
You gotta
all
work-
have to work
You gotta
harder.
work with me, because I got us to where we are, and I'm telling you right now, if you start removing any kind of revenues, increased revenues, decrease expenses, you're gonna put us where we used to be. or
Well,
close.
what we're gonna,
And again, thank God I have enough money in the bank that you're not gonna make it go away not gonna happen overnight.
No.
But
Can you imagine?
I'm gonna be right in the future. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I'm wrong, but I'm gonna tell you right now, 5 years, you're gonna say, geez, I wish that guy was back.
You know something? Tony's gonna probably be here in 5 years, and then you know what's gonna happen? It's gonna be, well, heck.
We'll be
That
rich.
night, I really didn't think I thought you were wrong, but you weren't. That's the point, Tony. This isn't like me against you. It's everyone working
the world
together
against
to
me right
look
now.
at this budget. The way Lynn used to look at the budgets and go line by line by line. That's what we have to do.
But I
And this is a
still look at the
crisis.
budget, and I agree with Tony. I mean.
I figured you would.
Well, I don't, you might, but I don't agree with him on everything on this budget at all. But what I would hesitate to do is second-guess the highway budget, because I know what storms can do and what problems we can have.
But you understand what I said? If you right now have budgeted figures for supplies, and you're not gonna use it this year, why not use it this year? Why not use money that's budgeted this year, and then reduce the budgeted
Because then
amount for
you've
next year?
reduced it so that the following year, if we have a hideous winter, the following
No,
year,
no,
then
no.
you're gonna have to raise
But
it back up.
if we're gonna purchase supplies now, you're not gonna have to purchase it for the hideous winter in the following year.
But the following year, you will. It's
No,
gonna
no,
catch
you won't,
up with
because
you.
you're going to have it. You're gonna purchase with the budgeted figures you have for this year. You purchase for this year. That's not going to disappear at the end of the year. That is still going to be there. The only thing that Tony said that could make a difference is where can you store it? If you're saying, well, Liz, we can't buy that salt because we have no storage for the salt, why not use the figures that you have this year, buy that salt, fix that road, do that now instead of not using it and then rebudgeting it for the next year, when God knows what could happen. And this has been happening, and that's why we end up with the 1.9 million. So buy it this year. So if you have all the salt that you're afraid of that you gotta buy next year, you already have the money right now in the budget. Buy it now, and then reduce next year's budget, because you gotta look at the tax cap. That's our responsibility.
Okay.
What's happening is we're not using the money, yet we're increasing and we're using the same figure, which means then you have an additional sum that taxpayers have to pay, because we have the additional sums in the garbage district because of that low bid. Pardon me, the lowest bid was really a high bid, but we didn't know how it impacted us, even though it was after the last budget. Absolutely agreed. But why is it that we weren't aware during the year of the impact that amount would have on us, so that we could have adjusted some of these
Well,
figures ahead of
because
it.
we knew what we were voting on, didn't you know what
No,
you were
no,
voting
no,
on?
Lynn,
But we didn't know there was an
listen
issue.
to what I'm saying. What I'm
I
saying
know.
is if we had known, we know that figure. We knew that figure, didn't we?
Yes.
And then at that point, we should sit there and say, we know this figure, and we know that 2017 is going to be impacted because we didn't budget for that additional amount. We budgeted on the old figure, which is proper, because we can't take your taxpayer dollars and say, holy cow, I think we're gonna really get socked with the garbage contract. That being said, we could have looked at, we now have, when did we get that figure? We could have then adjusted whatever we spent in here. For instance, buy the salt this year.
But
Buy this,
fortunately,
do
we
this.
had, because of Tony's budgeting in that case, we had the money.
Lynn?
If you're talking about cutting everything, that money wouldn't have been there. and
Never
we would've-
saying cutting. What I'm saying is look at this budget, what's in here. And what I'm saying, it's not cutting. It's maybe being more prudent in what we selected to use our monies for. What expenses did we take? Perhaps at that point in time, we would say, sorry, we can't buy the extra salt this year because we have to retain this salt this year because we can't budget that high. We are walking into 4 weeks ago, it used to be 3 weeks ago, we walked into this budget and all of a sudden it was like, boom, this is what's happening. And the impact on the garbage district, fine, once again. But what happens is we can adjust the rest of the budget. We can adjust the rest of the budget and the rest of our spending during the year to help us with the 2018 budget. That's what I'm saying. You can't just say, oh, the garbage went up, that's it, boom.
If I could have done that, it would have been done. And another thing is.
Well, I mean, at least give us a heads up about it.
Look at, you guys knew about it. I mean, whatever. Okay, look at, the culture that you're talking about is.
Culture?
I'm talking culture. What happens with use it or lose it attitude? Like right now, the reward to all of our employees, okay? They're given a budget, and they do a damn good job staying within that budget, okay?
Agreed.
We all do. So we put the same money back in the next year, but if you tell them, if you don't spend it, you're not gonna get it, they'll spend it.
No, no,
And
what
No.
that's
Yes,
not what
they
I'm
will.
saying, no.
Yes, they will. If it's in their budget, they're gonna spend it. But when I'm here, they know better than to come into me and ask for something they don't really need or whatever. They're not gonna use it, because they're not gonna lose it. But now, they're gonna lose it, and I'm not sure how you guys are gonna put that money back in without breaking the tax cap. Forget the garbage district, it'll have nothing to do with it, because for every dollar you take out of here, it's gonna be less that could be in the reserve at some point in time. That will start dropping down as time goes on. The only good thing is, we have enough money in the bank to make myself probably look good for maybe 3-4 years, but I'm telling you right now, I'm looking further in the future than that, and maybe I'm too much of a look to the future than worried about.
Well, no,
A couple of things is, we don't know what the tax cap will be 2019. Hopefully, we'll have more taxables on the tax roll in 2019. And hopefully, some of our expenses will be reduced, such as the solar farm, which they're starting to build.
and we might have more revenue.
And we'll have more revenue,
Correct.
because hopefully we'll have more taxable.
Right, I just heard tonight, how long to build Barrett Hill? I mean, that's gonna be revenue.
Right.
I mean, that's the point. And we
Well,
don't
it's-
know what else we're getting.
But there again, you're talking about revenue at the town level, which is the lowest level, but people's school taxes could increase. And I
Not
don't
if
want to
it's
get into other people's to subsidize those new kids in the district. So we need to be consistent and tell people the truth. And that
Okay,
is the truth.
2013, the tax cap was 1.17%, which is about $140,000. $140,000, okay? 140 tax cap. 1.56 in 2015, 0.73 in 2016, 0.68 in 2017, and this year, thank God we got a little relief, it's 1.84. We don't know what's going to happen in 19 and 20. I'm saying, don't touch this. Leave it the way it is. There's been absolutely no problem for the past 5.5 years. Why are we going to create problems now?
Because you're
It's the
saying
garbage
that you're
contract.
busting the cap.
I'm
You
not
can't do
doing it. The
We have
garbage
an
is doing it.
obligation to do it. It's not just the garbage.
Oh, it is.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
It is not. It's all of these other, I just said to you, 71,870. You're saying that departments are taking, oh my God, they're gonna lose it, use it or lose it. They haven't used it for the past 2 years. What are you talking about? They haven't used it in 16 and they haven't used it in 17. $71,870. They haven't used it. It's just in there as the budget. That $71,870 will increase our reserve. So maybe we'll have $2.2 million now we're gonna have $2.2 million, but all of you are gonna spend more money in your
Oh,
taxes.
no, we're not gonna have more now, because what you're gonna do, you're gonna start reducing it fast, but not fast enough, you're gonna make me look bad, but I'm gonna tell you right now.
Absolutely, they're not
and-
using
yes,
anything
I'm
fast.
telling you now, ladies and gentlemen, you come back here in 10 years and you see where this is. I'm looking to the future, we're looking to tomorrow, and that's the wrong way to do it.
No, I'm looking to the future because you are not optimistic enough to look to the future. Everything is right now black and white in your budget, in the budget that was prepared. And what I'm saying is accepting the budget that you prepared is not doing a service to our townspeople.
Oh, I don't
We
agree.
have to look at this.
Don't agree. And
No,
by
I
the
know
way,
you don't.
and again, I know you poo-pooed the fact that we're gonna possibly lose the Metro North station, $250,000 in revenue, starting in 2021 budget, no, 2020, so last year, the 2021 budget, that is $250,000 a year, and if we had this little bit of reserve that I got going forward for the next 3 years, we might be able to use it a little bit, but I'm telling you right now, you're going about it all the wrong way, and I'm not gonna argue anymore. You continue and do whatever, but I'm gonna be not a happy camper.
Could I just bring up healthcare, because I do think,
Well, she said she was gonna deal with it. What's your healthcare proposal?
Well, I have to first get all of the figures that you're explaining tonight, because you didn't provide us with the background figures.
What do you mean, when I put background?
No, the background figures for each and every piece of healthcare. I think, you know what it is? Let's just throw the cards on the table, and this is very important.
I didn't do
The
it.
point with the
You can't
healthcare is that I am a full-time elected official, and when I was elected, I had an option to take healthcare, and I did. And guess what? Lynn didn't have to do it, Tony didn't have to do it, Bob didn't have to do it. Tony gets healthcare through the county, which I'm sure that they're sitting, looking at their county budget and saying essentially, well, look at all these healthcare costs for these retired county officials, and that's fine.
Well, Liz,
because
you-
Tony worked very hard. Tony worked very hard for that. Bob is through the police. He worked very hard. Lynn is private. But when I
it
came
would
up.
save me money to take the towns. I don't do it because I consider myself, I have our schedule of hours
I know,
here.
and
We're
Lynn,
not
Lynn,
full-time.
you
You
always
get
made a
full-time
point of
pension
this.
credit.
And what I'm saying to you right
You get
now,
full-time pension credit. for
No.
retirements, I believe you do.
and what I'm saying to everyone
No,
right
less
now
than 10 years.
is this was offered to full-time elected officials, and I took it. And guess what? I am a full-time elected official on the books, Kathy Croft, and I'm telling you that right now. Go look up what we are with the state.
They are,
We are.
even with the county,
We
the
are.
legislature do not work full-time, but they're considered full-time
Full-time.
employees.
How do you like
Same with
that?
the judges. It's just what it is. Now,
Okay?
let me-
So the bottom line is, that's what it is.
Do you
And if that's,
consider-
and if that is what we need to do, because that's why it basically comes up in the last meeting, the meeting before, and yes, if that's something that the costs have to increase to buy it, or I drop it, then fine. But you know something? It is the least of our problems in this budget. That's what it is.
Well,
So you
it's-
can rest assured that you don't have to worry about that
It's not the
anymore.
least. If
Sure it is.
everyone took it, it would be $124,453.44.
I believe it's $17,000.
No.
What?
So
I
now,
got
I'll
the-
show you,
No,
I'll get my
time out.
W-2.
Wait, when you say 17,000, what's 17,000?
What the town pays to have health insurance.
For one
That's what it
person,
is.
for one person. Well, she's saying.
For a family.
80,000.
Oh, no, that's not true. You're wrong.
For a
All
family.
right.
I'm talking
Well,
about-
why don't you, look at my W-2.
Well, show me, just don't show me the whole thing, just show me that one line.
Well, I don't know why I wouldn't show you the whole
That's-
thing. You do the
well-
budget for my salary.
I'm saying, look, I just, on here, you're saying that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, look.
Well, wait,
That's
I-
not the number.
I want to
Okay.
just say, though, if we can run, we can all say we work full-time, because that's
do.
in I know you do, and that's in the code, that's what it says, but does everyone know how many hours you really work, and are you really full-time? And that's just a question you need to,
whether
I
they
get
have
the
to
technicality.
But Lynn, what it basically is you're saying about the healthcare because of this. And this has been your bailiwick for
No,
quite some
I have
time.
not asked about this until we've run into this problem this year of breaking the tax cap.
Exactly, I
I've been brought
agree.
it up for years.
I agree, and I'm agreeing with you, and I'm agreeing with you to the extent where I want you to look at the rest of this. I want you to look
I
at the rest of the
have,
budget.
Liz, I've got the tabs too.
Good, okay,
I've been
so let's
looking
sit
through
down
it.
together, just me and you,
Okay.
and we'll look at our tabs together. Because we
I'd be
can't
happy
have
to.
more than three, more than
Right.
two people sit down and look at our tabs together. But let's look at our tabs together. Because
I-
I agree, and you have always been fiscally responsible, and I'll be darned if I think that you're gonna break this cap without really, really looking at what I've done too.
And I have been looking, and
Good.
I've spent part of this week calling Verizon, and these are nickel and dime small things, but
No,
I think,
yep.
but I think that's important too. If we're gonna tighten our belts, that means tightening our belts.
Correct, I agree 100%.
Now, let me just clarify a couple things. When I was with the county, I had my own business, I had health insurance, I got there. I had no idea how much the job paid, I had no idea. I got there, I'm signing forms, what's this for, health insurance, what's this, glasses, what's this, dental? And after about 2 years or a year and a half or something, I realized that I wasn't paying anything for it. And I made a movement, which the management didn't like too much over there in the county, because managers didn't pay, and I felt that was so unfair. Why would maybe 500 or 600 employees in the county, 400 CSEA workers, and, CSEA, if there's Teamsters, whatever, they were paying health insurance, but not one manager paid. I thought that was ridiculous.
But I am
We all
paid.
pay.
I'm just
are
telling,
paid.
but she mentioned the
Okay.
county. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
tell
Oh,
you
okay.
what I did. I basically made sure that everyone paid, and everyone did it fairly. And again, I think we have a good thing here now. Everyone pays, new one coming in. If a new town board member comes in, a new judge comes in, they'll be paying 25% where they're paying 20. I did put forward a proposal at one point in time for the health insurance. I it's not that I agree with Lynn, because if you remember, I put it forward like as soon as I got here. It did not fly here, it flew up in Patterson. And when I made the proposal here, I grandfathered all the people that were in the system, everyone that was in the system, but anyone new coming in would not get it. And she's got numbers saying whatever, but the bottom line is when you are a judge, or you're a town board member, or you're a Putnam County legislator, you are considered full-time even though you don't work full-time. Okay, so anyway, now, Will's gonna send out a memo to all of us that you have to have these numbers in by a certain day. We're gonna have to set a public hearing for this here, so you got a lot of work to
It's
do.
already set.
in a short
November
period.
9th.
November 9th.
It is?
It has to be in by the November 9th.
Wait, we set a public hearing already?
No,
No,
that's
it's
what-
You're going to set the public
Tonight.
hearing tonight.
Yeah, we're gonna set it
It's on the
tonight.
agenda.
It's on the agenda.
Did I do that?
We didn't do it yet, but we.
Because we're not there yet.
When we set the meeting dates.
Thursday,
But-
November 9th is the public
But
hearing.
I think the point
Are
that
we meeting
Tony's
on
trying to
the-
make is I sent out a memo
Yes, you did.
which detailed what the town board has to do with
Yes.
his tentative budget. You have to present a preliminary budget with the changes noted, and you have to take a vote to change whatever it is you're going to change. And then, once that is adopted, it's filed with the clerk, becomes the preliminary budget on which we have the public hearing.
Yep.
And until the public hearing is adopted, that can't be changed. It can be changed after the public hearing, believe it or not, except for salaries. Can't change salaries.
Okay.
So our meeting on the calendar is the 2nd. Are we not having a meeting on the 2nd, or are we meeting on the 2nd?
Are we done we're done with this part of it, do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna go into the regular meeting?
Phew.
Okay. Yeah, now I lost my damn agenda.
John has something to say.
Oh,
We don't, it's not time to recognize the public yet.
Well, we did it for the dog.
Well, it's a work session.
It was a work
Yeah, I just
session.
wanted to ask, is there first I want to thank Tony, thank you for your efforts in getting us to this really healthy financial position.
Not anymore.
Well, no, really, where we are
Ye of little
tonight.
faith.
No faith, trust me.
I wanted to know, is there a separate highway contingency fund that runs a balance year to year?
Yes.
Do you know what the amount is now? How much is in it?
There's more than my budget, but I don't know the exact amount as of today, no.
And is the town able to tap this for expenses other than highway?
Not other than for the highway.
Cool, okay. And what special district pays for the garbage contract?
The town.
The town?
Every commercial properties and the Village of Brewster do not contribute toward that fund.
Okay, so,
And apartment houses and
so
more than
everybody,
two-family.
everybody's tax
Not
bill
necessarily.
is figured out based on where they are.
Two-family?
Yeah, two-family and above don't pay.
I don't know.
You
that.
wouldn't be charged for
Is
for garbage unless
Three-
you're
three
in the
family?
district.
Right, more than two-family.
Okay,
that's-
it's considered any commercial property or, I mean, there's very few of what Bob's mentioned, so I
Well,
don't know.
like, yeah, the apartments at
Over on Houston.
Stonecrest and Houston and.
Yeah, Husted.
Husted,
So
yes.
you're paying the garbage contract this past year. It was a special district, but
It is a special district. Matter of fact, today, last month was the 20th anniversary of the creation of the garbage district in the town of Southeast.
okay.
We had a big birthday cake for it.
So by paying for it, that's not a problem, paying it out of the contingency fund this
And
past
that,
year?
we can't
You
pay it.
can't
I
use the
took-
general reserve
what I-
fund for
What-
that.
what you did-
I paid the difference between the two. We had a reserve in there.
Okay,
There's no longer a reserve in our surplus, or whatever you want to call it, in the garbage district. We used every penny this year, I did, to balance the budget. I don't know if they're going to change it. Every penny that was in there, we used to balance the budget this year, and 40,000 is being put from last year into this year's to replenish the fund.
okay, so we really shouldn't be paying the contingency or paying the garbage district from contingency funds?
We
We're
can't.
not.
No.
Okay.
We can't.
The 40 will be from the special districts next year, so no one who shouldn't be paying for garbage will be paying for garbage.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Make a motion to go to the regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Correspondence, waive the reading of it. Approval of the voucher list, $724,286.99. So move for discussion.
Second.
Discussion.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, oh wait. Okay, that's the wrong one. Okay. Next is setting meeting dates. All meetings will be held at 1360 Route 22, Brewster, New York, at 7 p.m. unless otherwise noted. Since the beginning of the year, we have listed Thursday, November 2nd, 2017 as a meeting. I have on here Thursday, November 9th, 2017 as the public hearing for the town budget. What is your pleasure? Are we going to have the meeting on the 2nd and do all the business? Or how do you want to do it?
I got it, we have
We
to
have a
do it
lot
on the
to
9th?
No, yes, we're going to
It
definitely do
doesn't
the
have to be
9th.
at the night, it has to be before the night, right?
Before the 9th. So when do you want to do this? When do you want to do it?
I
To
can't be
submit the
here on the
preliminary-
They have to
2nd.
have it on
Time
the
out.
second.
To submit the preliminary budget has to be before the public hearing.
Right,
So you have to have a meeting before the 9th.
right,
Which is the
So the-
2nd.
which would be the second.
Or it could be any day.
But when's the public hearing going to be?
9th, you're
It
saying
can't be
tonight.
later than the 9th. It can be
Okay.
any day.
Good, so it'd be the 9th.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, but you have to have
I'm
the,
not gonna be here then.
so you have to present it. I mean, that at the public hearing, they can present it that night?
No.
So what day do they have to, when do they have, we have to have a meeting before the public hearing?
And you have to have a meeting that you have sufficient number of people to vote on the changes.
Yes.
So then perhaps, because Bob and I recall Lynn had at one point saying she couldn't make the 9th, although she.
No, I said I wasn't sure.
Right.
But the 9th is the public
I'm
hearing.
going to stay here through this budget. I'm going to see it.
Okay, so the bottom
Well, we're
line
gonna
is,
see
we
it
can do
through,
any, we don't have to specifically do
A
a
Thursday.
Thursday, do we?
Right.
So
Well-
why don't we have it on a different day, because unfortunately, I can't be here on the 2nd. So, the bottom line is, if you want to continue to hear me bellow.
We don't.
Then it's going to have to be on a
Let's do
different
it on the
day.
second then.
No, yeah, well, no, I am concerned with a budget that at least we find controversial, maybe no one else does, but
Believe me.
I'm uncomfortable, and I'm sorry you're not gonna be here, but I am uncomfortable switching the day.
Well, why don't we, but
I mean,
if we,
the
if we
Thursday.
switch it to
I
the
mean,
1st.
the reality is,
That's a Wednesday.
also after
Yeah.
election day, we'll know what the story is of the library bond.
By the way, I was in error. I had asked Will and I talked to Ron as well. Because we're not going to actually, we can't collect the revenues, and even though they voted for it, we can't put it until the following year. So the following year, guaranteed, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to
We're
break
gonna
the
bring
tax
the
cap
cap, if it
again.
passes.
If it passes. So just be forewarned.
Oh, so it could be 2 years
Okay,
in a row.
But that would be up to the public to
Yeah,
decide. If they
so-
vote on it,
And
so
same
be
with
it.
the garbage
So,
contract.
so once again, if we have the meeting on Wednesday, November 1st instead of the 2nd, what would be the harm?
None.
Okay, so why don't we have it on the 1st?
Okay, now, I'm not gonna identify the location, I'll find out if this facility is available, we'll get a hold of the video photographer, who's gonna get less money next year because it's getting lower, no, okay. Wednesday, November 1st. So we'll check with the courts.
That shouldn't be a problem, because they
Wednesday,
don't
though.
generally have courts on Wednesdays.
No,
and
but I gotta check with Victoria.
There's the
Does that-
ARB is always later in the month.
Okay, so right now, it looks like it's gonna be Wednesday, November 1st. We'll make it the same time, or can you wanna make it 6 o'clock or earlier? Because I know how long it's gonna take to do it. What do you
Anytime
want?
after 4 would be fine with me.
Well, 6 o'clock to.
Unless
either
we
6
want some department heads. here.
6
Do
or
you want
7.
any of them to come, or, I don't know.
But you know what the department heads are gonna tell you? He made my budget. Can you give anything back? There's nothing, if you think there's things to give back, look at it and say who you want to hear. Ron will be here, and he's gonna tell you something different than I've heard tonight.
Well, that's good, because he's already told me, and once again, I disagree with him.
You disagree with the accountant?
Oh, sure I do.
Wow, okay. I just, Will, I'm gonna ask you as the attorney to make sure whatever we do here at the end is legal. Please.
I'm trying, Tom.
I don't wanna be going to jail, because I can see me, I mean, I know you guys like me
Holy
there,
cow,
but-
we went from
Well, I don't know
1.9
if there's
million
Anybody
to
who wants to go to jail.
What,
This is
1.9 million
as long as
to
no
go to jail.
budget item puts any money in your pocket,
That's
you're
right.
not going to jail.
Okay,
don't
so
worry
Wednesday,
about it.
November 1st is the first one. The public hearing is gonna be set for November 9th on the town budget. And
Well,
what-
if Bob can't be here, can
Not the
we,
9th, but
well,
can you be there the 8th?
with the, what's the?
What's a Wednesday?
Yeah, Wednesday, the 8th, I can be here, yes.
I'm not voting, just so you all know, I'm voting against this, just so, I'm not gonna argue it, it's fine. but
okay, so
I'm
we're
for it
saying,
always
now
on
we're saying
Thursday.
Wednesday, November 8th is the public hearing?
I mean, I know some communities even have meetings on Saturday mornings or whatever, I mean, to give other
I know,
people a chance to get-
I spoke to some
Why we're
senior
locked
citizens.
into a Thursday at night when it gets dark early and seniors can't
Right.
drive.
Okay, look, right now we're doing, let's do what we're doing.
Yes,
Are we
that's
now
fine.
saying the public hearing, we're gonna schedule for Wednesday, November 8th?
Yeah, I think we all should be here.
It's,
Yeah, Wednesday, yeah, I don't know about Edwin, but he. I'm
okay,
sure
and
he-
we're gonna keep them at 7
I
PM.
know he's away on business tonight.
I'll check on those 2 dates. We'll let you know tomorrow. If they're good, it's a go.
It
If it's-
shouldn't be the ARB either, that's.
Well, I
much
don't know,
better.
let's find out.
Yep,
okay?
that's fine.
Well,
And
we can
then,
even
I'm
have
voting
a-
against it,
do we
doesn't
all
matter.
agree on Thursday, November 17th?
I do.
Yes.
Okay, good, okay. Fine, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No,
Okay, passes 3-1. Budget transfers, waive the reading. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You have to.
Oh. Let's read them.
You don't have to read it, you just
Okay,
approve them.
I'm still back on the public hearing. Okay,
Second.
who seconded?
I did.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
What time is it?
what did we just vote on? I am so
9:55.
confused.
Wow,
That's my
It's too late
bedtime.
for
that's a new record, wow.
Where are
It's
we?
the worst meeting I've
Feel
ever
like
been
the old
in.
days.
Oh, God.
Used to sit here
No,
till
I don't have any
11
big,
No one has a
I
gavel.
don't
We're
have any
doing
big
fine.
checks,
No,
although
where's
I
the
want.
What? No one has a
No
gavel?
gavel, no gavel.
Thank God.
Okay.
And you can just
Number
dial
five-
down the hysteria.
Number 5 is a resolution declare lead agency, chapter 72, farmer's market. Now therefore be resolved that well, wait. Oh, this is for secret, so.
Yeah.
It's resolved that pursuant to 617.6 small b 1 of the State Environmental Review Act, seeker, the town board of the town of Southeast hereby declares itself lead agency for the purpose of seeker for the unlisted action. So move for discussion.
16th.
I'll
Discussion.
second it. No.
All in
No
favor?
discussion. Aye.
Aye.
We, if I may, we have,
It's the 16th.
it's the 16th, Thursday, November 16th is a Thursday.
Thursday, wait, where am I at?
Good,
Wait,
good.
no.
November 16th.
November 16th
November
is a
16th?
Thursday,
Yeah, not the 17th.
not the 17th, it's a
Oops.
Friday.
Okay.
So that would be the regular monthly meeting of.
Yes.
And also presumably the day that we would adopt
The budget.
whatever budget is finally.
So we have to redo that resolution? I'm still voting now.
Huh?
Never mind, but we have to change the date from, because we voted on November 17th, correct?
Well, I make a motion to amend, actually, this whole thing is really subject to change, so.
Well, it's a Scrivener's error.
So,
Yeah.
I make a motion to amend the last one at least to November 16th, 2017. Who
I'll
seconded?
second.
Who seconded?
Second.
Okay. She'll make sure whoever seconded it the first time agreed to it. All in favor?
Aye.
Supervisor report, we've already done it. That took the longest part of the evening tonight. And,
With the lead agency, we need a second for the farmer's
I'll
market.
second
Okay.
oh, I thought we had one.
Yeah,
it.
you did.
Okay.
Yeah,
And we
Bob
need to
did
vote
second
on
it.
And we did. All in
We did?
favor?
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Public comment. Wow, where'd everybody go?
Boy, that is real dedication.
Kathy Croft, and I have a request. You have been posting backup papers with the agenda for the meetings, but when you have, like tonight, you had the farmer's market proposed code change, but
It's
you didn't.
online.
But you didn't have it attached, the papers weren't attached to the backup with the agenda, and I was just wondering if you could do that. And also,
Well, it is online.
where,
All these things.
where?
On our website.
Under farmer's market or,
Where? Because I went looking
You
for
went
it, and I
in and
thought
Googled-
I've got to go to that agenda where you actually first spoke about it, and it would have been there.
no.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I
The
know,
cha- The
I-
proposed
okay.
changes.
I'll do
I
that.
agree.
If it wasn't on, it should be on.
Yeah.
I-
So, and then the other request is if there could be backup pages for, posted with agendas for planning board, ZBA, and ARB, any of the
What do you want from me?
backup.
Backup papers.
In other words, when they
That's not
have,
done. We don't have backup for them?
No.
Oh, we should, I didn't realize that.
yeah,
So
no.
you're saying you want every planning board application posted on?
Well, whatever is on that agenda, and just,
With all the
well,
pages? Good.
They got big maps
I don't
and
think
stuff
we
like
have
that.
the
That'd be
bandwidth.
all
Well-
That could be tough,
Pardon me?
that's
I don't think we have the
at,
bandwidth. to
at
be able
least
to do
have
that.
something attached to it, because right now, there's nothing
But that's really
attached.
Victoria's back.
That would be very difficult because the volumes of paper for that kind of stuff, they've got big maps.
Okay. Well, okay, so let's go back to.
We'll give you our stuff, but I don't.
I mean, and you can go to the planning
Let's
board
let's go
office.
back to Morrow Equipment. And Morrow Equipment went to the ZBA because it was out of order. It went to ZBA when it was a planning board. And when there was the ZBA public hearing, I asked for the information that they were showing us, and it was a public hearing, to be posted on the town's website. And I can't find anything on the town's website for that ZBA public hearing.
What do you want to see? What do you want?
Well, what they were showing.
I don't think we've ever
Done
done any
anything
of
for
that
the
for
ZBA.
ZBA.
You do it for the
In my
planning board.
experience. We've done for certain projects for the
Right.
planning board, but not all of them.
Right. Barrett Hill, you did it for Crossroads, it was
Yep.
done. So even if it's a
But the planning
link,
board does a lot of projects that it would probably be, we're talking about busting the budget, that would be difficult to.
But
well, there's plenty of money in the budget to bust it, so that's okay.
Well, that could be for 19.
But I would think most things that the public's very interested in.
Well, I
Would
think
be-
that's what
would
we've
make
been
sense.
doing in the
Yeah,
past.
they were in
I'm just saying,
Barrett
I don't
Hill
know
and
that our
especially
website has the bandwidth to
Yeah.
put all those documents up.
Okay, well,
Not all of them, but I think Morrow
I
generated
thought,
enough
yeah,
interest.
because I had asked that night when the public hearing was at the ZBA, I'd asked for the pictures that Terry Hahn was showing up here. I said, could that be put on the website?
And what they say?
Victoria had never done it for ZBA, but usually it's the applicant has a link to their site. It's not something
Yeah, but
that.
that's not something that that's more difficult, I really think.
Well, I think that's what we
Certain-
did,
certain
that's what we
projects have-
did, that's what we did for Crossroads.
Yeah, certain-
That's what we
certain
did.
projects
Big
have,
projects they
I've been
have.
asked and requested to do it, but some of these things, most of them are not gonna have that. If it was a big project. Morrow at this point in time is not big. I mean, it's a big structure, but is it
Well, no, but
structured?
it's generated, it's
Well-
had a lot of interest in town with people attending both planning board and ZBA, so I think it does merit,
I mean, I would like to see the planning board and zoning board meetings recorded like. the
Wait,
town
you
board
just
meetings.
cut the budget.
But I-
Don't even go there.
I was just
but
gonna
we
say,
are
but
trying to
right.
do SoundCloud, the
Right.
audio.
But the
We are
problem
working
is,
on that.
now money it would be 3 times as much as the video.
So I'll just go back to my original request. When you have something on your agenda, if you could just put the backup papers, because
I'm
tonight
I'm responsible for that, I'll do that.
okay, great, thank you.
I thought you did that, though.
I do- you know what, I
Usually
mean,
is, but sometimes,
Whatever. I
No,
mean,
it
this,
would be
it's
helpful.
already on there somewhere, so whatever. Okay.
The county does it.
Veterans Cold War exemption, so, okay, no, we'll do it. I'll do it.
That's it.
Hopefully, no one has anything to say.
I went to an opioid summit today, but I won't.
Are you off drugs
I could,
now?
no, I could use one.
Is he user?
No, it was very interesting and helpful, so, but we don't need to get into it tonight, I don't think.
Yeah, good thing.
Call me if anyone's interested.
Good.
No, I
Okay,
think I don't
I'll
want it.
entertain a motion.
I'll second it.
No, wait.
Oh, Edwin's not here. so-
Well, I'm not, I want to keep going.
All right, because Edwin's not here, I'll make the motion to close the meeting.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for
Thank
coming.
you.